Hello my sweet friends and welcome to DIY with Nadia. Today I'm doing a mega video of all my wreaths from 2020. For the spring wreath, I will be using this beautiful, elegant wreath from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be making it just a little bit softer and painting it white. The reason I'm doing this is because the flowers I'm putting on top of this wreath are going to be pink, and they will stand out a little bit more and nicer against the white versus that beautiful natural oak shade. The flowers that I chose were these beautiful spring blooming branches, and I used 3 bushels of them. 3 bushels were way more than enough, and as you will see, my wreath will turn out nice and full. I did cut the flowers down to about 1 inch with the branch. I thought the branches were a beautiful element to bring the nature into my wreath, and also I hot glued the flowers by the branches onto my wreath. To make our spring bow, I will be using these 2 different ribbons that I got at the Dollar Tree, the gold one and then the pearl one. The first thing I did was measure approximately how long I needed the bow to be, and then I needed to get that same length of the pearls. Now the pearls are a little bit thicker and 5 rows were too much, so I cut 2 of the rows off. And as you can see, they fit really nicely right on top of that gold ribbon. Then I simply took my hot glue gun and just hot glued the pearls onto the gold ribbon. The gold ribbon was a type of fabric that would fringe, so I decided to grab it and cinch both ends before I went into making the bow. And of course, for safety reasons, I always put my little tea light out before I move on with the project. To find the center of the ribbon, I folded it in half, and then I made a loop from the left and a loop from the right to make my bow. I brought the bow together with a white chenille wire, and then I grabbed that wire and just wrapped it around the wreath and just pushed the flowers to the left and the right, so kind of my chenille wire is hidden in between the flowers. To cover that chenille wire in the middle of my bow, I just grabbed a leftover flower and just hot glued it to the center. Now I'm taking the leftover pearls, the 2 rows that I cut off, and I'm making a loop with them. To hot glue this type of ribbon on top of each other, it's the best to use either some kind of a mirror or tempered glass like I'm using here, and with the help of my little pink thimble that I got at the Dollar Tree. For Peony's wreath, I will be using this green foam wreath from the Dollar Tree, and then I will be using 3 bushels of these beautiful pink peonies and then 1 bushel of the white. The first thing I did was remove the peonies from the little stems and cut off the little tips. The problem with this is those tips are what holds the whole flower together, so basically what I ended up doing is I hot glued every single one of those layers together. And that is the beauty of crafting, you guys. You do something, you learn from it, you move on, and the next time you're a pro because now you know what not to do. In the second wreath I will be making, I rectified the situation and I think it turned out pretty nice and a great way of doing these types of wreath. Now don't forget to save the greenery, because the greenery you can also use in the wreath, and whatever greenery is left I will be saving it for future projects. In this wreath I did decide to take all the plastic away from the greenery, just because I did decide to hot glue the greenery straight onto the back of the flower. As you can see, I am done with my wreath at this point, but I did leave a little bit of room at the bottom for a bow. Now, because my foam wreath is green, I needed to cover the area so it looks a little bit nicer. So I'm going to use the same ribbon that I'm using for the bow to cover that area up. And I absolutely love that about this ribbon. Now for the bow, I'm going to make a 4-loop bow. Just going in and out. I'm not measuring. I'm just approximately making a simple 4-loop bow. Then I'm just pinching the bow in the middle and I'm bringing it together with a zip tie just because that's what I had on hand. But I have been known to use any type of floral wire, a chenille wire, or even sometimes a thread. Anything you have on hand is absolutely fine because that area I particularly usually cover up with something anyway. Now I'm obviously grabbing the worst scissors in my craft room and trying to cut the ribbon off because as you can see, it was a bit of a struggle. With the little extra piece that I cut off, I'm going to fold it in 3, and with the smooth side up, I'm going to wrap it around the middle of the bow and just hot gluing it in the back. I usually cut off 1 inch to 2 inches for this middle part of the bow, and this always depends on the thickness of my bow or the thickness of the ribbon that I'm using. So definitely you can measure, or usually just eyeing it works just fine. You're just cutting off a little piece. If it's too small, you cut off another one. If it's too big, you just overlap it in the back of the bow and cut off the excess. I'm just measuring to make sure that my tails are the same length, and I'm cutting little ducktails. And then I'm going to do what I call banner endings. This is where I make a little wave with my ribbon at the bottom. So all you do for this is you make a little zigzag with your ribbon, fold the bottom portion underneath a little bit, and then just crimp it tight in the back. And that's it, and you have this beautiful bow. For this wreath, I will be using these gorgeous fuchsia Aster flowers. Also, I will be using Queen's Ends lace, Carrot Savage bushels, and this foam wreath. Now here I'm showing that I'm going in a zigzag, and what I'm doing is I did not cut off the little edges from my flowers. What I'm doing instead is just putting the flower in and then hot gluing the edge of it. And as you can see, I'm poking the flower in and once again hot gluing right there. This zigzag design is very good when you're using smaller flowers. For example, I did not do that with my peony flowers because they were so huge. But with the smaller flowers, you do want to use the zigzag. This way you make sure that the sides are covered and on the inside it's covered. So when someone looks at this wreath, it looks completely full. Now I'm grabbing my yellow Queen Anne's lace, and I just love the contrast with my fuchsia Aster flowers and this gorgeous, gorgeous yellow. And what I'm doing is simply filling in all the spaces, all that green with these yellow flowers. And just like with my Aster flowers, I'm just taking the bushels as they are, pushing them into the green foam, and then just securing it with a little hot glue. To complete my wreath, I'm just grabbing the greenery from my Aster flowers and just filling in anywhere there are gaps. The Queen's Anne's lace is beautiful, but it does kind of open up, so I did put a lot of greenery in between those Aster little bushels. To hang this wreath, I decided to use some jute cord, and I just cut off about 7 inches, threaded through the wreath, and just tied it to make a loop. going to bring out those beautiful florals we got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to start with these gorgeous white lilacs. After taking the lilacs off their stems, I also took the green leaves that came along with the lilacs and I separated them. I will not be using those for this project. To make it easy on myself to see where the center is, I took a colored piece of paper and put it where I want the ends of my bottom design to be. That way it gives me some sort of a symmetry point where I can start, because I'm going to work outside, meaning from the sides into the center of my piece. After I have my lilacs hot glued to my piece, I'm grabbing the greenery with the berries and the one with the little yellow, and I'm just working one side, and after I hot glued it where I wanted, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now I'm going to make a 3-loop bow with this beautiful deco mesh that I got at the Dollar Tree. To help me keep my bow together, I'm using about a 4-inch chenille wire. I start by gathering the edge of the deco mesh together and then just making a loop. After I've made my loop and overlapped it so it would hold together, I'm using the chenille wire to bring it together. Then I make a second loop and I also use the chenille wire just to tighten it up. When I measure off how long I want my last loop to be, I just cut it off and do the same thing in reverse as I did with the first one by gathering it together and just looping it on the inside, overlapping it a little bit, and securing it with a chenille wire. Next, I hot glued my bow to the bottom center of the piece. For the contrast of the white and the yellow berries that I wanted to put in, I made sure to put some greenery first. Then I put my yellow centerpiece, and then I added the berries where I thought they were appropriate. To even out my project on the top and to hide that little hole where the other part of the egg was connected, I decided to do a miniature version of the bottom project. Starting with my lilacs, I cut off about 1/3 of the bottom portion of my lilacs so they are not as full and large. And then I just took greenery pieces, kind of cut them down too, to make things fit in a smaller fashion. Just like inside my bow in the bottom, I took the berries off their stems and separately just scattered them around the yellow berries. For this project, you're going to need chenille wires, any color will do, a metal wreath form, and 6 rolls of deco mesh, whatever colors that you choose. For the centerpiece of this wreath, I used this beautiful basket I got at the Dollar Tree. Before we get started, I'm just going to show you a little tip that I use to save time when I'm making wreaths. Now, when I'm watching TV with my husband or just bored or just not really productive, I grab my deco mesh and I sit there and just cut it up. Then when I'm ready to make a wreath, it's all ready. I have all of these cut up, and as you see, here's a before and after. I just wrap it up with a little ribbon, just layer it. It's nice, folded, and ready to go. I'm going to be cutting my deco mesh into about 6-inch strips. If you want to make them, you can also do 10 or 12. That is up to you, but keep in mind that the longer your strips are, the more deco mesh you are going to need. Now I'm just going to continue this process with the rest of the deco mesh. I used 2 pinks, 2 whites, and 2 purples for this project. Here I'm just cutting my chenille wires in half with these wire cutters. I just feel like you don't need the whole chenille wire. Half a wire is more than you need. Now it's time to make the deco mesh bundles. I'm going to grab 1 of each color for a total of 3 deco mesh pieces for each bundle. I grab first piece, roll it in, and then put it between my ring finger and my middle finger. Then I'm doing the same thing with the second one, rolling it and also putting it between my fingers. And then when I'm done rolling my third piece, I grab a chenille wire, wrap it around my deco mesh bundle, and twist it 2 or 3 times nice and tight. And just like that, with the magic of YouTube, they are all done. The metal wreath form at the Dollar Tree comes in 4 layers. You got the first, second, third, and fourth. You can either use first and third, second and fourth, or second and third row for a nice condensed wreath. I will be using the first and the third row for this project because my centerpiece is on the smaller side. I like to start putting my deco mesh bundles where you see the metal wreath ring and the stabilizer wire meeting. Besides the bundles that will go on the metal stabilizers, I will also attach 3 of the bundles on the first row and 4 on the third row of each section. I'm starting each section by putting a bundle on each stabilizer corner, and then I'm filling in each row. Now it's time to get my beautiful Dollar Tree ribbon, and we're going to cut it into 8-inch strips. Now I'm taking my wired ribbon, making a loop, overlapping it about 1 inch, and then I had some leftover chenille wires that I used to bring each strip together. I did this for the rest of the strips I had. The next thing I did was laid out each of the loops on the wreath where I thought it looked good. Now I'm proceeding to attach the loops to the wreath. I'm not concerned which ring I'm attaching them to, as long as they look good in the spot that I placed them. It's now time to attach the basket to the wreath. I'm using 2 full-length chenille wires and looping them in the back at each side of the basket. Now I'm just attaching the basket to the metal wreath form. When I finished with the wreath, I just thought the bow on the little basket was missing something. So I removed the center plastic part of the bow, and I found this cute little button. I thought the pink color kind of worked the best with the colors, and decided to just hot glue it right in the middle. To get started, I'm just using these tea lights to prop up my wreath so it's easier to paint, and I will be using this beautiful acrylic lime green by Craft Smart to give this wreath 2 coats. The succulent square I got at Michael's. Originally it was $20 and I paid $2.50 for it. Now I'm just removing the succulents from the grid, and I found that the best way to take them off was just to twist them off the grid. Because these succulents are all one piece of plastic, I went in and I cut off all the tips so they would lay really nicely on the wreath. To arrange my succulents, I first grabbed the really big ones and just spread them on my wreath, and then used the little ones as fillers throughout the wreath. Here I'm just using a hot glue gun to secure the succulents to the wreath, but then I realized that the succulents are plastic and they are on the heavier side. So I did go back and reinforce them with E6000, and I do highly recommend it because the weight of the succulents will eventually start playing a role and they'll start falling off if you only use the hot glue gun. To decorate my wreath, I decided to pull out this beautiful 1.5-inch white ribbon, and I'm just making a simple bow and securing it in the middle with some floral wire. To prevent my bow tails from fraying, I do always like to singe, and I like using little tea light and just really quickly running the endings of my ribbon through the flame. To cover the middle portion of the bow, I'm just using a leftover piece of ribbon and just hot gluing it together, so I have about a 1/2-inch ribbon, and then just folding it over and hot gluing it to the back of the bow. To hang the wreath, I cut off a 14-inch piece of that white ribbon that I made the bow with, and I just attached it to the back of the wreath. To finish off the wreath, I took that beautiful bow and put it on top of that ribbon, and then grabbed a tiny little succulent and also hot glued it to the center of the bow. Before starting on the wreath, I knew my home sign needed a few coats of white paint. This is an old home sign that I had in my stash, and it was this dark navy blue, so I gave it a good 3 coats of white acrylic paint. Here is this fluffy, beautiful scarf that I absolutely loved, but it was time to move on. And I'm just going to pin it to my little foam wreath that I got at the Dollar Tree, and then just start going around and around the wreath. After fluffing my wreath out, I decided to embellish it with a little bow, and I'm making the bow out of grosgrain ribbon that I had on hand, and this is 1-inch ribbon. And so I made the big one, which is going to be the white one, and then just used a paper clip to hold it together while I got my second one going. And the second one is going to be a gray one, and I did the same thing, a simple little bow, and then I put it on top of the white bow. And to finish off our bow, I will be using a polka dot bow that I got at the Dollar Tree, out of all places, right? And it's so cute, and I just used it as my top bow. Then I brought all my bows together using a chenille wire, because that is what I will be using to attach the actual bow to my wreath. Next, I'm working on the tail, cutting off some excess ribbon, and then singeing the edges of the ribbon. To cover the middle of the bow, I just cut off a little piece of that polka dot ribbon, and I'm just hot gluing the ends to the back of the bow. I wanted to share a few tricks about working with grosgrain ribbon, because grosgrain ribbon is a tough ribbon, but when you're trying to make this beautiful bow, there are some things that you might want to do. For example, here I am, I just pushed down one of the tails and I hot glued in the back how I want that tail to stay. I will be doing this to all the tails and also where I want my bow to stand up. You could definitely dab a little bit of hot glue right behind the bow so you can place it in the way that you want it. To attach my home sign to my wreath, I'm just attaching 2 pieces of chenille wire to the back of my home sign. After a little bit of hot glue tweaking, I think this bow turned out super cute and super easy. Anyone can do this bow. Now you can attach it anywhere you want on the wreath along with the home sign. All the supplies we're going to be using today are from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to start with this foam wreath and then a pack of potpourri and also cotton balls. For both of these projects, I did use 2 packs of cotton balls. Now I'm simply hot gluing the cotton balls to the front, the sides, and the inside of my foam wreath. Okay, you guys, now that everything is covered, look how gorgeous this is. If I was selling this or this was going on a door with a glass, I would definitely put a white ribbon to cover the green, but it really, look at this. All the sides, I made sure there was no green. It looks absolutely beautiful. Now for this part, I'm going to be taking all of these that kind of look like these curly cues kind of, and I'm going to be breaking them apart because all you really need is this tip to show. And then I will be just putting them on and just breaking them because I want to make sure that I have enough. That's why I'm doing that. And I'm just throwing some hot glue right on the edge. And it's going in wherever I feel like it needs it. If there's any areas that will kind of like peek through like this, you can either put a little bit more cotton in or whatever you like. See, I decided to stretch this open and I have a little half a puff of cotton and I'm just going to insert it right there. And then I will be going on all of these. I'm going to save for later projects. All these other looking ones. But this is, I think this is going to be absolutely stunning. Okay, you guys, what do you think? So I put a little ribbon right here just to know where I was going to put the original ribbon. And I just noticed that one of my cottons is kind of loose. So I'm gonna, okay. And so I'm going to take this off in a second. But before I do that, I decided to use this burlap ribbon and it does have the wire in it. Let me just take it off the spool, because I've used it before. And the bow they have here is pretty simple. So I'm just going to do that simple bow. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to hot glue these guys together, like really, really lightly. Then grab another piece. And then here, where I have my little blue ribbon, that's where I'm going to come in with my little, with the rest, I guess, with the rest of the ribbon. And I really don't want it too long, so I'm going to cut it off. And then I'm just going to hot glue the bow in place. Today I will be using a very different medium for my wreath, and it's this diamond braided rope from the Dollar Tree, and I used 3 packs for this full wreath. 1 pack is enough for 2 sections of this 14-inch metal wreath from the Dollar Tree. Because of the way this rope is packaged, it's necessary to stretch it out. So I just grabbed it and just stretched it out from one end to another. Then I grabbed it and folded it in half, found my middle, and started braiding in one of the sections. As you can see, the first loop we made was underneath the last metal row. So then I'm grabbing my rope and then I'm going over and under, and it's hard to see because the rope is so long and I'm just threading and threading through. But basically you are going over and under, and then I went over and under backwards, and once again I'm going over and under backwards, and you're just going like that non-stop, back and forth, over and under, over and under. And in about 3-4 rows you already see a little design forming, and it's so pretty, and I absolutely am in love with this process. And I'm in love that I found this rope that is just such a beautiful bright color and works so much with this seaside theme that I'm going for. In and out, and it just looks so pretty. And then once again, under, over, under, over, and then we continue going with that. After completing 2 sections, this is what is left over, and I decided to continue weaving because I want as much leftover of that tail as I can possibly get at the end. That way we can pull it over that section right there where it's showing that little metal bar, and we can pull it over that. But for right now, I'm going to continue with the leftover tail. When you're done with your rope, it's time to hot glue the endings. The most important thing here is not to pull your endings towards the inside of the wreath, but more or less towards the direction that you are braiding. Meaning, don't do a 90-degree angle, just pull it, and in the same direction that my rope is going, that's the direction that I'm hot gluing that last ending. Now onto rope number 2. As you can see, I hot glued it right on top of the leftover tail, and I continue braiding where the leftover tail left off its work. After I was all done, I had a tail left over, so I grabbed the tail and folded it into 6 sections. That way we can cover those metal bars all around where the black is peeking through. And there's a total of 6 of these section bars. Now all I'm doing is I'm grabbing my glue gun, putting my little ropes over them, and just hot gluing in the back. Now it's time to decorate. I grabbed this 3-piece sign at the Dollar Tree, and I decided to use that bottom one that says Seaside because the colors really worked with the rope. Here I'm just making sure that the sign is nice and centered, and then flipping it over and hot gluing it in place. To make the waves, you're going to need 2 different Deco mesh rolls from Dollar Tree. One is blue and one is white, and if you have some left over, that's perfect because you do not need much at all. I think you at the most will need about 30 inches of each Deco mesh in total. To start off with, I'm grabbing my blue Deco mesh, and on top of it, I'm layering my white. Then I'm bringing both together and tying them with a little zip tie. You can also use a pipe cleaner. You can use a little floral wire. Whatever you have on hand is fine. I am just more partial to the zip ties. Now I hot glue my zip tie ending to one of the sides. And what I'm doing next is just adding 2 more zip ties to make a total of 3 waves. When I'm done with that, I'm adding a 4th zip tie to the end, and that one is going to act like the first zip tie for my waves that are going to go on the opposite side. After hot gluing both of my Deco mesh ends, then I'm going to take my 2 middle zip ties and I'm going to hot glue them to the edge of the wreath. I'm repeating the exact same process on the opposite side. Okay, you guys, so these are actually shells that I brought from the sea, that I actually got from the beach. I don't usually take any when I snorkel, but if I find them on the beach, I feel like it's kind of fair. So I did bring these home from one of my adventures, and I am going to spray the front and the back with some white spray paint. To cover my Dollar Tree wreath, I'm using this amazingly gorgeous blue burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I thought it was so gorgeous, and with my white seashells, it would make such a gorgeous contrast. So I decided to use this, and I just wrapped it until it was all gone and hot glued it in place. To make the bow, I'm grabbing my absolute favorite ribbon from the Dollar Tree, which is the burlap ribbon with a little lace, and I'm bringing it together with a little piece of jute cord. Now I'm just cutting both of my little tails to size, and I'm also cutting little triangles on the edges so it's nice and cute. Now I'm grabbing both of my conch shells and I'm hot gluing them in place at the bottom of the wreath. To hang my wreath, I'm cutting off another piece of jute cord, tying it in a knot, hot gluing the knot right in the middle of the wreath. Then I'm just grabbing my bow and I'm going to hot glue the bow over the knot. That way everything is nice and smooth and you have this gorgeous wreath. To get started, I'm grabbing my 14-inch wreath form that I got at the Dollar Tree, and very careful with wire cutters. I'm going to cut off that 4th ring. That's the last ring on the outside, and I'm cutting as close as I can to the 3rd ring so that the metal part that's holding all the rings together is not poking out and it's not going to scratch your doors. But as always, you guys, don't throw anything away. Save that 4th ring for a future project. Now it's time to work on the bottom sign. I cut off the jute cord that was meant to hang the sign. Then I got some painter's tape and put it right underneath the America sign. Now this is an extra step and you really don't have to do this, but the little stars did have some glitter on them, so I did sand them off a little bit. And now I'm just going to do 2 coats of white acrylic paint. I just wanted a clean white background, so when I put the ribbon on top of it, it looks nice and clean. I'll be using this burlap ribbon with lace for the front of it, and I'm just cutting off enough for the length of the sign plus an inch on both sides so we can hot glue it to the back of the sign. Because of the dome design of the metal wreath, only the middle ring is actually going to be touching my sign. So I decided to attach it using an old-fashioned ribbon method. I just grabbed some scrap ribbon and cut out 6 pieces. 2 pieces are going to go on top and 1 in the bottom center of the sign. because deco mesh is going to be in the way later, I decided to do this step now. And I'm just laying the wreath over my sign and seeing where my pieces of ribbon are going to go. So then at the end, I'm going to get the last 3 pieces of ribbon and just hot glue them over these pieces of ribbon. And this is going to give it a lot more security than just hot gluing the wreath straight to my sign. I'm going to be using 3 rolls of this deco mesh that I got at the Dollar Tree. And unfortunately, one of these deco meshes, or actually 2 of them, was really, really loose. And so I had to be really careful as to how I use it. But the good thing is, the method that I will be using today, it's okay if you use ribbon that's a little loose, because this method is going to hide that. The first thing I did was open up my rolls of deco mesh and layered one on top of the other. Because this was a 3-color ribbon, I layered them where I had blue on the bottom, then red on the bottom, and then blue on the bottom again. And that way it's more uniform as you go along. Now I'm just bringing all 3 layers together, squeezing it in the middle and making a little tail. And I'm going to use zip ties for this wreath, and I'm just going to zip tie that tail onto the middle ring. Now we are just going to make loops, and we're going to make sure that it loops on the outside nice and smooth. And I like my loops to be about 6 inches, and this board from the Dollar Tree, this green one that I'm using, is actually 6 by 8, so it's perfect. And while I'm working, I'm just going to just quickly use it when I feel like my loop isn't that accurate. But I mean, really, it doesn't have to be. You can do this by eye. But I just like that approximate length to be pretty even. And as you can see, as I'm going along, I'm using my zip ties to make the loops. For this project, I will have 6 poofs or 6 loops per section. Now I'm grabbing the dullest scissors that I have in my craft room, and I'm cutting off the little tail. To make sure that my deco mesh tail does not stick out, I'm just tucking it underneath that middle ring and then grabbing another zip tie and securing it in place. After making sure that all my zip ties are nice and tight on the wreath, I'm just grabbing wire cutters and cutting off all the extra tails. Now it's time to secure my metal wreath to the actual sign. I'm just dabbing some hot glue right on top of the little ribbons that are tied to my sign and putting that second piece over it. This way, it's a nice seal. To complete my wreath, I'm grabbing 3 large stars from the foam scatter that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just cutting down the back a little bit to make sure that it hot glues nicely. And once again, be really careful doing this and just cut each corner of the star, working from the outside in. This project is going to be a full Dollar Tree project. The first thing you need is a foam wreath from the Dollar Tree and then a scarf. I cut the scarf in half, just folded it and went along the folded line. To start wrapping the scarf around my wreath, I'm just bringing it together at one end and pinning it to the wreath. As I'm going around the wreath with my scarf, I am hiding the seam line so that the fabric is nice and smooth on the outside of the wreath. I first played with the idea of putting some flowers because it would be a really nice contrast between the white and the blue, but then at the end I decided to get my burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree and make a simple but a pretty bow. To bring my simple bow together, I'm just squeezing it in the middle and tying it with a mini zip tie. Then I'm cutting some ducktails for the edges of the ribbon. To cover up that black zip tie, I'm just using some jute cord and wrapping it around the center of the bow. and hot gluing it in the back. In order to hang the bow, I decided to use some of that jute cord and make a little loop. To finish off this beautiful 4th of July wreath, I'm grabbing these 14mm pearls that I got at the Dollar Tree. Can you guys believe how big these are? And at the Dollar Tree for $1, that's wow. So I'm just grabbing these and making sure that the sides where you would put a thread in are kind of facing sideways so you can't see them from the front. And I'm just putting the pearls and hot gluing them along the wreath all the way around. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my wall hanging from the Dollar Tree, and since I didn't know which wording I was going to go with, I took my Mod Podge and just Mod Podged all 3 of them. The reason I do this is that Dollar Tree sparkle gets on everything, gets on your hands, whatever you're working with. So I always like to tame it down and just put Mod Podge over it, let it dry. Not much, just a little bit, just enough for it to stay in place. These little square signs are not that big, and I also wanted something. I wanted a nice solid color around my little 4th of July sign so that it stands out against the deco mesh in the back. Next, I grabbed my white grosgrain ribbon that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm cutting it into 3-inch strips. Now I'm just singeing all the ribbon edges to make sure there's no fraying when my wreath is going to be hanging, especially that this wreath is going to be outside. The way I singe my edges is I like to use a little tea light. I just run my ribbon next to the flame really quickly back and forth, and I feel like I have more control than using a lighter, but there's nothing wrong if you are used to using a lighter and are very good at it. So, you know, there's many ways to do the same thing. Now I'm just grabbing my little 3-inch ribbons and I'm going to be folding them in a V and just putting a little dot of glue at the bottom. And as you can see, both of my fingers on the hand that I'm holding the little V together do have the rubber protectants on them, and I do get those at the Dollar Tree. They come 3 in a pack. Now it's time to attach my little ribbon V's to the back of my 4th of July sign. I hot glued the little V's about 1/2 inch from the edge of the sign, and I used 5 of the little V's on each side, so basically I made 20 of the little V's. In order to attach my sign to the wreath, I just grabbed 2 chenille wires and hot glued them to the back of my little sign. To make the wreath itself, I will be using 6 rolls of deco mesh from the Dollar Tree, a 14-inch metal frame, and also zip ties. I will be using these little zip ties for this project, but you can also get zip ties on Amazon or at the Dollar Tree. It really doesn't matter, but I would say a minimum of a 4-inch zip tie is needed to do this. For this wreath, we're going to start by layering the mesh. I'm going to put the red on top of it. I'm going to layer the white and then the blue. And with the deco mesh right on top of each other, I'm bringing it together at the end, and I'm going to zip tie it to the 2nd and 3rd ring together, nice and tight. And the way I like to do it is I like to kind of put it on the intersection so that it holds in place really nice, meaning from one side of that divider to the other side. To do my loops, I love using this board from the Dollar Tree. And so what I do is I measure about 8 inches right there. And then I just bring it together and I make a little loop. When I bring it together, I take my little zip tie and then I just tie it together. In this wreath, I did 6 of these loops per each section of my wreath. And I still had a lot of ribbon left over where I could have done 7. My wreath did turn out nice and full, but I'm just saying that if you guys want to, you could definitely do 7 loops if you keep them at about 8 inches. Now I'm just taking the leftover tail and making sure it's nice and secure and nothing sticking out or poking out. I actually gave a few zip ties in that area, and whoop, there's my helper. Here I'm just going around the wreath and really making sure that all my zip ties are nice and tight. And then afterwards, I'm just grabbing my wire cutters and going all around and just cutting off all the tails from the zip ties. Here's my favorite part. That's where we get to take the Deco mesh and open it up. So what I did is I would just take the blue one, put it on the left, and then in the next loop, I'll put the blue one on the right. And I just kind of mix them up. Red would go to the left, the red would go to the right, the white would be somewhere here and there, and you just do this throughout the whole wreath. This is so much fun. It is so satisfactory. I don't know why. I absolutely love this part of making this wreath. Now we're ready to grab the sign and attach it to the wreath. I'm just going to place it how I want it on the wreath, flip the wreath over, and then attach it to the second or the first ring of the wreath. Mine attached to the second one, so I was kind of happy. I knew it was nice and secured, and I absolutely love how this wreath turned out. I just adjusted the sign in the front a little bit, and bam, you guys, it's all done. How easy and beautiful is this wreath? For this tablecloth wreath, I will be using these 6 tablecloths from the Dollar Tree, and I chose this lime green, pink, and yellow. This is the kind of wreath you want to do when you're watching TV and you just sit there and do something. This is going to be perfect for this because it will take you a few hours to do this wreath, but I promise you it's so much fun. The first thing I'm doing is taking the tablecloth right out of the package. Don't unfold it, nothing. Cut it down the middle. After that, I'm going to cut those 2 pieces in half once more. The side pieces that you have, make sure you unfold those straight down the middle and cut those in half so all your strips are about 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches. After that, I'm taking my long strips, folding them in half, and cutting them once more. Your finished strips should be about 6 to 6.5 inches. Now it's time to make the petals. I'm just rounding off each edge and leaving a point on both sides of the petal. Okay, and here are all 6 tablecloths cut into these little petals, and I will be using a metal Dollar Tree wreath form for this wreath. So what you want to do now is decide what pattern you want to go in. I am going with pink, yellow, and green in that order. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie them just like you see me tying it now. And I'm going to do 2 of each color at a time. So 2 pinks, 2 yellows, and 2 greens. And I'm going to repeat the same pattern on every row as we go along. And this is what a completed full section looks like. I just wanted to show you that I am following the pattern. And look how fluffy and beautiful this is turning out already. This is so much fun, you guys. To complete my watermelon wreath, I am using this little sign that I got from the Dollar Tree, and this came in a set of 3. I did not want that arrow on the sign, so I decided to just cut that part off, then sand it down, and to finish it off, I did use some Mod Podge just to make sure no sparkles are going to fly off and to make sure that it's going to be nicely sealed and nothing's going to peel off in the long run. Okay, so now a few hours have passed and I'm all done with the wreath. And it feels so good to just fluff it out. It looks so pretty and I love the color combo on this wreath. And here are the petals that are left over. I will be saving them for a future project. Now it's time to hang the sign. I'm just grabbing a chenille wire, folding it in half and cutting it. And now I'm just attaching it to the back of the sign and let it cool for a second before putting it on the wreath. To attach the sign, I am coming from the back and I'm going to put the sign on top of the inner ring and I'm just tying my chenille wires to that inside ring. Because we're coming from the back, the petals are going to be covering the sides and it's just going to fit in perfectly inside the wreath. Alright, let's go over what we're going to need. I'm going to be using a 14-inch wreath, and everything I will be using today is from the Dollar Tree. Then we are going to need some of these chenille wires. Then for the 14-inch wreath, I always use 6 packs of Deco mesh. So if you're doing 3 colors, just 2 of each color. For this wreath, I'm doing 2 colors, so I'm going to need 3 packs of white and 3 packs of pink. So my pink ones, as you see, are already pre-cut, and I just do this when I'm watching TV. When I'm bored, I'll just sit there and cut them up, and I have them ready to go because this process can take a while. So that's why I find, like, when I have time on my hands, I'll just sit there and cut my Deco mesh up. For my Deco mesh, I will be doing 6 to 7 inches. I like using this board because this board is side to side 7 inches this way and then 9 inches this way. And for this, I like to keep it about 6-7 inches, so that's kind of easy. You just put it down. If you're going to use one of these, you could just roll it right here. Or if you're going to use scissors. Sometimes I just do what I feel like. I'll go and make like little notches and just cut it pre-cut like this. So let me just do one of each here so we can put one together. So let me get 1 pink one and 2 white. So how we're gonna do this is we're going to do in 2 types of bundle. We're going to do white, white, pink, and then pink, pink, white. And here is what it's going to look like already made. I made a few to get us started. So on this one I have white, white, pink. And on this one I have pink, pink, white. And I just kind of do every other so I keep it even. And then before I start putting them together, we are going to get our chenille wires, and you could fold them in 2, fold them in 3, whatever. I find folding them in 3 is just fine. I'm going to roll my first one. All right. And then I'm going to take it and put it in between my fingers, just like that. I'm going to take my second one, and usually a different color. Roll it. And if you're doing 3, you obviously are going to have just bundles of 3 different ones. And what I like to do is I kind of crisscross them. There you go. And then let's get the 3rd one. We're gonna roll the 3rd one. And since the white one is on top, I'm going to have the white one on the bottom. And I kind of make almost like a little flower here. Take my little chenille, bring them together, pull them up, and really just kind of do it tight, you guys. Do it like nice and tight, like show them who's boss over here. And then you have a nice solid bundle. All right, so once again, we're going to just take the first color, roll it, and put it between your fingers. If you are having a hard time with this, you just take a big one of these, or even a clothespin, and just clip it. I feel like it's not, sometimes, you know, you want to give different options because other people, maybe somebody has arthritis and, you know, this is hard for you. Just use a clothespin, that's fine. It should hold it in place. Because I know this is kind of, you know, it's kind of hard to press. So then we take the second one, crisscross it. Grab your pin or clothespin, whatever you have. And then we take another white. And also, if you have arthritis, don't deal with cutting this in 3 pieces. Just cut it in 2, make it easier for yourself. Okay, we have our little flower. Then we got our chenille wire. Fold it up. And give it a good few twists. Okay, you guys, I'm going to start by explaining how we're going to do this. On the second row, we are going to have 4 bundles on the inside and then on the crisscrosses, okay? So that will be a total of 30 bundles because we have 4 in each section and then 1 on each cross section. Moving on to row 3 because we're only going to use the second and the third. In the third row, we're going to have 5 in each section and 1 on this little cross section. The reason I like doing that is because it keeps all my bundles secured when I have bundles on the cross sections. So 5 on the third and 4 on the second. So on the second row, the total is 30. On the third row, it's 36. So the total bundles that you need for this wreath is 66. To make things easier for me, I have pink, pink, white, and white, white, pink. Grabbing one of these, they're already ready, and I'm just going to tie. We have a pink, pink, white, then white, white, pink, and just nice and tight. So 1, 2, and then pink, pink, white, and white, white, pink. I just did 2 areas just so you see how it's done, and then I'm going to, and these later on you can just wrap them around your little row right here, and that's it. It's not a big deal. And then these you could wrap around. And I know you're probably worried about this being seen. Don't worry, because when this gets filled up, you're not going to see it, because all the ones you're going to have in row 3, they're going to be pushing these guys down. And so this is really going to be covered. See how it's covered? So that's why I want to do the third row right now, just to show you. Okay, you guys, this is 2 sections done already. Look at this wreath. Look how full and beautiful it is already. And this is literally just 2 of the sections done. That's it. Okay, guys, I'm going to finish the whole wreath up, and then I will be right back. We are all done, at least with this part. And so here is how it looks in the back. And so now you just go around and they're like, if there's anything loose, just trim it down, make it look nice and beautiful. So for the ribbon, I will be using this polka dot burlap ribbon and also this grosgrain white ribbon. I want to keep this nice and simple. So here's what I'm doing. I want my ribbon to be about 8 to 9 inches. So I'm just going to, because this is 9 inches right here. So I'm just wrapping it around this. And this is basically how many I'm going to get. We're going to do the same thing with this one. Okay, and now I will be making little ducktails on all the edges. Okay, so the next thing I will do is basically bring these guys together. I have my thick one, my little one. Bring them together, make sure you find the middle. And we're just going to make banners kind of like this. I just wanted to point something out. When you're making these ribbons, make sure the good side is facing on the inside, because when you put it on, like I have it on here, when you put it on, this is what's going to get opened up. So if you do it the other way, you get the opposite side. Okay, so at this point what I do is I take all of my little tails, especially if you have an odd number like I do. I have 11 instead of 10. I have a little extra one, so why not? I'm going to kind of spread it out and see how I'm going to fit them, because you don't want to be short and you don't want one side to be saturated and the other one to be kind of empty. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and just grab one of my little ribbons, and I'm going to put it on the second one right here, because the third one is already going kind of backwards, so you do want to put it on the second one so it stays to the front kind of, and just tie it in place in the back. That's what I'm doing right now. And then just open it up how you like it. Maybe this one you want kind of going this way or something. It's up to you. You just kind of make it, it doesn't need to be perfect. This is a wreath. You want it to be loose. You want it to be, you know, to have its own character. So it's alright. You do you. Like I like to say, you do you. You do whatever works for you. Okay, you guys, so I went in my stuff and I actually found this hope sign. And it's from the Dollar Tree Crafter's Square. And hope is actually my name. If you like translate it to English, Nadia means hope. So let me take this off. My grandmother was named Nadia, and so I was named Nadia. But just so you guys know, in English it means hope. Okay, you guys, I gave it 2 coats of white chalk paint, and now I just need to add my chenille wire to it. And I was trying to figure out the best place to do it, and when I put it on the wreath, it looks like this area kind of is the midpoint, or like that's where it would be good if it was attached. Okay, so I'm just putting my chenille wire. I'm thinking like this. And then I'm just going to add some hot glue over it so it seals it nicely. And then we are going to attach it to the wreath. All right, so there's an area in my wreath where I just kind of moved my ribbon, and I felt like it was kind of sparer than the rest of it. It wasn't as even, so I thought it would be perfect to put the sign right here. And I kind of want the sign to be like on the side. So this would be, I think, really, really nice here. And when I have a sign, I like to put it between two of the wires. So let's make sure it's how we want it. Oh, you guys, this is beautiful. Such an elegant addition to it. And now for the Chicago Cubs wreath. I'm using this wreath form from the Dollar Tree, and all the mesh is also from the Dollar Tree. Now I decided to do 8 of these, and basically you see me laying out 4, which means I will be using 4 at a time. You don't have to do this. 3 is really sufficient, but because this is Chicago Cubs and because the colors are red, white, and blue, I wanted to make it look a little bit less like 4th of July and wanted to give a little bit more of that blue. So that is the only reason I'm using 4 rolls instead of the 3. To get started, I'm going to start laying my mesh out. First, I'm going to get a layer of blue, then I'm going to add a layer of white, then red, then blue once again on the outside. This is one of the simplest wreaths you can make with Deco mesh because all you're doing is you're gathering at the tip, attaching it to the wreath, and I do like using zip ties for this, and just making little loops. I attach my loops to the wreath using those 2 middle rows of the wreath. I laid out my Deco mesh facing the curly side down. That way when you're making those loops, it's just easier and it's natural for the mesh. Now I'm just grabbing this measuring mat from the Dollar Tree because I want my loops to be about 8 inches. And I just keep it right there, right underneath my wreath. That way it's so simple. I just keep on turning it and just measuring 8 inches. Bam, I'm bringing it together. That's it, you guys. That is that easy. I did 6 loops per section, each loop being approximately 8 inches long. And then this is going to be enough for half a wreath. The 4 Deco mesh pieces are going to be enough for half of the wreath. Then you're going to get your next 4, and that'll total an 8. But as I said, I only used 4 because I needed to put in more blue. You can definitely do this with 3 and it will be full. I promise you guys, it'll be beautiful. And here is one section completed. For now, we're still going to spread them out, but for now, here's one section completed. Here, I completed a little bit over the 3 sections, and the only reason I stopped is because I ran out of my white Deco mesh, and here is what it looks like from the back. Here I'm showing how I attach an ending of one set and a beginning of another. I crisscross them, as you can see, and I'm taking my little zip tie and I'm going to tie it to only one of the metal rings, and I'm just going to make sure that it's nice and tight, like very tight, because then I don't have to worry about it and I move on with making my loops. At this point, I'm cutting off all the little ziplock tails, and I like to leave about 1/4 to 1/2 inch of a tail in case I need to adjust. And now it's time to separate the loops. I'll be honest, This is my absolute favorite part. I literally am smiling right now just thinking about doing it. I absolutely love it. And I just like to open all the loops up where, for example, the white is going to be on the left, then on the right, then in the middle. Same thing with the red. Just put them in different places and just open them up, and it's so much fun. And at the end, it's going to be so satisfying and absolutely stunning. Now let's move on to make the Cubs sign. I grabbed one of those stuffed up covers, and this is the smaller out of the set of 2 that it comes, and painted with chalk white paint. And this is in linen white by Rust-Oleum. Now I printed out a Cubs logo, and I'm cutting it out in sections. To start off with, I traced the logo itself. Then I'm cutting out the Cubs C and tracing that. For the letters, what I'm going to do is an old school technique where I grab a pencil and just doodle on the back as much as I could. And then I'm tracing with the pen right onto my sign, and then just going over it with a pencil so I can see it a little better. To make it easier for me, just a little bit, I grabbed an eraser and erased it because I could see where all the lines go, but I wanted it to be just a little bit lighter because my white paint is already painted and I will be just filling in with the color paints. For my paints, I will list the paints that I'm using down below, but basically, if you're interested in the paints I'm using, I will list them down below in the description box. But basically, I'm just painting the Cubs word in red and the outside circle in blue. To seal my sign for a permanent hold, I'm using a very generous amount of Mod Podge and just spreading it around the whole sign. I also wanted to mention that yes, you can just print out a logo, a colored logo, and you could use Mod Podge to attach it to the stovetop cover. Our color printer is not working at this moment, so I decided I'm going to go for it with the paints. Using lots of caution for this part, grab an awl or something that's sharp like that and make holes on both sides of the sign so we can just grab a chenille wire, cut it in half, and attach it that way to the wreath. If you are not comfortable doing that, that's fine. Just grab your glue gun and attach the chenille wires with a glue gun. But keep in mind, those might not hold on metal as well as doing this technique. But as I said, do what's comfortable and make sure you use safety. Now I'm grabbing 6 more of these chenille wires because the ribbon that I wrapped for this part, I got 11 pieces out of it. So I'll be using 11 of these half-cut chenille wires. And what I'm doing it is face side up. I'm bending the ribbon forward and then just using a chenille wire and just making a little, kind of like a little pom-pom. And that I will be attaching to the wreath. I got this ribbon at Joann Fabrics, and I will try to find a link to it and attach it down below if I can. If not, I will find a similar one on Amazon and link that. Before attaching the ribbon to my wreath, what I like to do is just lay them out on the wreath form itself and then just attach it. That way you know that your ribbon is evenly spaced throughout the wreath. Alright you guys, let's get started. I'm going to have my Dollar Tree wreath, a good pair of scissors, and I have 2 yards each of this yellow right here, orange, and a brown. if you are going to use tool that's on a roll, that tool usually comes either 6 inches by 20, 25, or even shorter feet, just because sometimes when they have sparkles, they're shorter. But it usually averages at 25 feet by 6 inches on those rolls. Here, this is just regular kind of, I want to join fabrics. I got this fabric. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half. So this is 54 inches, fold it in half. This is how it usually comes on a roll. I'm going to take this and just fold it in half. That's it. Now I'm just measuring off 6 inches right there. And I'm going to cut it. This is going to give me 4 pieces. Okay, here I'm going to cut the double here. And on the other side where my tool originally folded in half, the 54 inches, that's that. And then you have these long kind of, mine is 14 inches, which is kind of a lot. But let's see what it looks like on my, my wreath. So this will make a nice fluffy wreath. Now you have 2 techniques. At the end, I'm gonna ask you which technique you would prefer. So this is the first one. And this is the one I will be using today. So where you take it, you tie a knot, and then you take it again and you tie it a second knot. And there you go. Technique number 2 is where you take it, let me just undo this. You fold it in half, and then you take it and you just bring the little edges through the loop. Now, actually, maybe I might do this technique today. I don't know. And here you have a nice, kind of like this, and over here it's nice, but then again, it's loose. The thing is, I'm going to have this where it's kind of windy. So this is the only reason I'm not using this technique. I love this technique because this is going to make all of them just look so smooth and so beautiful. But we are going to tie today because this wreath is going outside. It's going on my front door. And I don't want to worry about, you know, tightening them up in the middle of the season or anything like that. There you go. I made my tie. At the end, if I feel like this is too long, we're just going to even this out. But right now, I'm going to continue cutting and making my little loops. Alrighty, you guys, you know what? This was not as much of a headache as I thought it would be. This took me like maybe, I don't know, 15 minutes to do this. Super quick, super easy, and I got my 3 colors. So I'm just tying them in the middle and moving them. See, that's a nice thing too. It just moves so easily that if I didn't have enough of these, for example, and wanted to add another color, I can just, you know, move one over. That's it. Okay, you guys, what do you think so far? I have just a little bitty left here, and I still have some of my tool left, and I am just pulling it really, really tight on the edges. So the good news here is this is just $7, you guys. $1 for the actual wreath, and I paid $2 each for each color, 1 yard each at 99 cents. And that's plenty of this tool for this project. And then if you do want to embellish it with florals, which I want to do, that's going to be extra, you know, depending, or maybe it will cost you nothing if you have those florals on hand. So yeah, not bad at all. I really enjoyed doing this, and this is not, you know, one of those wreaths that sometimes take me hours and hours to make. This was fairly quick, and I'm just watching an episode of actually CSI, the original one from Las Vegas. But anyway, yeah, I'm just working it here, and yeah, plenty left. I'm just going to finish it up and then decide what florals I want to use and how I want to decorate, because this is, as I said, going on my front door. So I'm super excited about this one. And I still have like this much left over of each color, but it's just so tight. As you can see, it's really tight here. Okay, and now the florals. All right, now it's time to get the florals together. I'm just using a little piece of wire, about 10 inches floral wire. And then I'm grabbing these bundles from the Dollar Tree. These were from the last year. I'm not sure if they had any this year. And then I'm sure you guys remember these. They have them throughout the year. I am not using any greenery in the wreath because that's just going to defeat the purpose of that fall look. I'm going to take one of these pretty ones and I'm going to attach them together. And so I'm working from top to bottom. Okay, see? They're just sitting there nicely. This one is going to come from the bottom going towards the top. In the inspiration piece, there was a little pumpkin, so I do want to make sure we work our little pumpkin in. And then I'm just going to use some of these as the background. They're really pretty orange leaves. This is absolutely working for me, and I love that I have some sticking out over here on top, some of this red working in over here. Oh, you guys. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to use another piece of floral wire to bring it all together, and then this is going to go around the wreath. Something really interesting. So I found this elastic support bandage that is this gorgeous orange. I always try to look for unconventional things that I can make wreaths with, especially at the Dollar Tree. Okay, so we're going to take these little bands off, and you can just start pulling kind of taut. You don't have to even hot glue if you don't want, and just start going around. Now I'm just hot gluing it in place. All right, to decorate, I'm going to be using this little maple leaves bushel, and this is like the light maple leaves. And then I think I want to use some of this white ribbon because I want the decor to be a little bit on the lighter side. And this is from last year. I think they have this ribbon this year too. I'm just going to grab a little piece of floral wire, get a tail about 4 inches long, make a simple bow. And so the first thing I'm going to do is hot glue some leaves on here. I have some of these fuzzies from a previous project. They're from the Dollar Tree, and I want to put them over here too. Okay, now I'm going to see if I think I'm going to use 2 of these, and these are just white little or ivory little berries from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to put them in between these little guys. These berries are so full. I'm just going to snip a little bit from the back, and I'm actually going to use them in the center right here. I am going to do little ducktails. For this wreath, I'm going to be using Dollar Tree foam wreath, and we are using yarn that's also from the Dollar Tree. So the concept here is fairly easy. The first thing I'm going to do is tie a little knot, and then I'm just going to start to go around. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to take orange yarn. This is from the Dollar Tree, and by the way, if you flip the little label over, you will see 9-inch ruler right inside. I'm not sure if you guys can tell, but there's a 9-inch ruler right on the inside right here. So I'm going to start in the back. So we're going to loop it through and leave a little tail before we go around. And how I do it is just I try to keep it together. Now for the front, and we're gonna make a little bit of an angle and try to space these out fairly evenly. You can always fix this. Is not permanent, and you want to do it kind of loose so you can adjust it as you go along. Now here I am going to start going the other way. So I'm going to tie it right here. It doesn't have to be really tight. And what I like to do is kind of like do a shoelace tie. So you can always untie it in case you need it. Let me see here. I just did one of those. And now I'm ready to go the other way. And this is where you can adjust because you want that crisscross to be in the front top. Now I'm just going to untie this and then tie it with the one that we just finished with. And now you're completing that circle. If you're not sure, just do a little tie like this, and you could just hide it in the back until you're sure how you want everything done here. To decorate, there's many things you can do. I decided to do something cute, and because I had these mini pumpkins and I wanted to do something with those. I'm just going to grab 3 of these, and I want to hang them kind of like this. The nice thing about using a black strand, it can disappear and you can adjust it. Okay, so I'm just taking and tying it underneath this so it doesn't fall forward. We're just gonna hot glue it right here in place. So now I want to do a little bow for the front. So basically what I'm going to do is leave an 1-inch tail, kind of make a little 2 ears, and I'm going to just tie them. Bam, we have a little bow, kind of like we learned to do bunny ears when we were little. You can cut it as short as you want, but I thought it would be so adorable. Once again, 1 inch, bunny ear 1, bunny ear 2, and we're just gonna loop them. I'm gonna loop it over here, and I'm kind of going to just sink that little piece of thread in, and that way, let me see here, you can't even tell from the front. Okay, you guys, after playing with this for a little bit, what I found is you really want to tie it right in the middle, right here. This way the little pumpkin will hang nice and even in the center of the wreath. Okay, now that my pumpkins are attached, the last thing I'm going to do is permanently tied, the orange thread, now that I know we're all done. For this wreath, we are going to be using mesh tubing and of course the foam Dollar Tree wreath. I have 2.5 packs. This one I used previously, so we'll see how much I'm going to need. I find it best to keep it together when you're starting to work. And we are first going to hot glue the little tail in place. Okay, now that that is nice and secure, I'm going to start wrapping. You could make it flat, it's fine. So if you have a damaged one, sometimes they come kind of damaged like this. It really shouldn't be like that, but for this wreath, that's going to work just fine. And we're just going to wrap this tightly, and see, this is where it was, and it just goes around really nicely. And make sure you make it nice and compact so we don't see any of the green. Okay, we are 2 packs in. Okay, just a little dollop of glue and then continue. I'm going to hot glue it in place right here. Let's start with some of these flowers. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hot glue these just to kind of get me started. Okay, so what I decided to do is grab another mom, and I'm going to put this one in between 2 of these. So at the end of the day, I'm having the hardest time deciding if I want the heather little beads to be right here or the willow, and I decided to use actually both. And these willow branches, you can definitely, if you don't need that length, you could definitely cut them in the middle and kind of double it right here. So this is just one branch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this one right here facing up. I like this a lot. And I'm just going to hot glue this in place. And in case you're asking why am I not giving it any greens, I'm one of those people that I believe in the power of 3. Meaning, I do not like, if I'm doing something where it's, you know, something clean, I like no more than 3 colors. So this I consider color 1, this is color 2, this is color 3. Would I put something white in the back? If I had something white, I would. But the only thing I have that's white are these little berries. It's just going to be a little too much. But if I had these in ivory, I would probably put them along. Probably. Okay, so I decided to go ahead and grab some of these berries, and these berries come from the ones where the leaf little bushels, like where the ivory yellowish leaves. And what I'm going to do is I'm going just to stick them throughout here and there. What do you guys think about the berries? Should I have stopped without them? To complete this wreath, I decided to get one of these 3 little pumpkins, and they have a little clip on them, and I'm just going to clip it to one of the plastic little floral holders. And I think this just gives it a beautiful fall feel. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is decide how big you want your wreath. I want mine to be 12 by 12. So I picked sticks that were pretty much that size. These little ones could work, but may not. So I tried to pick ones that are a little longer than 12 inches. That way I can cut them off if I need to. And basically I'm just going to get some white chalk paint and paint them like this. This is from a previous project because I like to kind of overdo on my sticks because it's something natural, and for it to come together you may need to maneuver, and you know, not every stick would fit the situation kind of. So I always like to have more of these than I need. All right, so let's get to painting. So I'm using the Rust-Oleum chalk paint in linen white. And I like to use these brushes from the Dollar Tree just because they are, you know, they can go really nicely in between the little grooves of the wood. And they're cheap and they're fantastic. I absolutely love them. So I measured them at 12 inches as far as, but I'm going to do the inside at 11, so they're overlapping a little bit. Okay, now for the florals, I'm going to be using these guys. I don't see a name on them, but these are from the Dollar Tree. And I'm not going to be using the greenery. I don't really like using the greenery for fall too much because I love the reds and the oranges and the browns. And then when you put the green in there, it kind of springs it up, if you know what I mean. And so just getting some of my reds here, a little bit more. I love these little brown stems that it comes. It adds such a beautiful element to your wreaths. Alright, you guys, now I'm taking this little guy and I want to place him right here, and he kind of covers it, and then I have these two leaves that are going to go right here, and I think it's coming together nicely. His little burgundy hat matches our little spurts right here, and I'm really loving it, you guys. Coming along nicely here. I think that's really perfect for that, and I think I'm going to do a little white ribbon to match this and just hang this up. I think we're done. What do you guys think? Simple, easy, and very pretty, I think. For this wreath, I'm using a Dollar Tree metal wreath form, And what I'm going to start with is 8 chenille wires, and they are going to go on the first 2 rings, and then 10 chenille wires are going to go on the outside 2 rings. If you are someone who likes to have everything very even, then I would do 6 right here and 12 on the outside. But today I will be doing 8 and 10. So the way I like to do this is I like to pretend I'm cutting a pie or a cake or whatever you want to take it as. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I like to do this really, really even, especially on the first one, because the second one is going to be 10, and that one's a little bit more all over the place. So for the first 2 rings at least, we can keep it nice and even. All right, I just got 10 more chenille wires, and those are going to go on the outside 2 rings. At the end of the day, this is going to be a nice, poofy, beautiful wreath. And I find that this is the most important part as far as when people are starting to do wreaths. This part is overwhelming for some reason. So, you know, just keep it simple. 8 on the inside, and I'm doing 10 on the outside. Okay, so I'm done with this part. I have 8 on here and 10 on the outside. And we all start this differently. Some people start on the outside and move in. I actually prefer to start the wreath on the inside and move out. Okay, so today I'm using a 21-inch, 30 feet Deco mesh. And I got it for $2.49 on clearance at Michael's. Dollar Tree mesh, it is exactly the same, except it's half the roll. We're going to start by just bringing our outside little tail together. And the best way to do this is to use some zip ties. For Deco mesh, I do not recommend using Dollar Tree zip ties. They're just too weak. I got my zip tie, and I'm basically just zip tying it next to one of my chenille wires, and I really like to have it nice and tight. And just this tail, I'm going to leave about 1.5 inches off, and I usually like to tuck that on the inside. We can always use some more chenille wires to patch it in place, but right now we are going to go around. I have a measuring mat, but I do like using my green mat because this mat is 9 inches from side to side, and I just add a tiny more. This is not rocket science, you guys. This does not need to be anything complicated, but make sure when you're making the loop, you're conscious of where your ends are going, and they should be going towards the inside or to be on the outside, so you have that beautiful poof. Alright, now that we have the first loop completed, I'm moving down, and what I'm doing is I'm grabbing a zip tie and I'm going to move on to the second and third row, but I'm going to zip tie my Deco mesh on the third row, just so it's secure in this little spot. And I'm going to just use my wire cutters and cut that off. Now I'm working on the second and third row. I'm starting by grabbing my 10 inches. I got my endings on the side. I know my poof is nice and stable. And I'm moving to the next chenille wire. Once we completed our circle, I'm going to cut off about an inch, inch and a half. And this is how much I still have left. You should be able to do this with one roll of the Dollar Tree mesh. Dollar Tree just did not have this maroon color for the theme that I was going for, so I had to use it. Now I'm grabbing a zip tie and zip tying that tail in place. I secured it in place on the third row, not the fourth, because I want this tail to be hidden and not touch the side of the door where the endings can scratch. I'm going to put my wreath to the side, and I'm going to bring out my trusty mat here and a yellow Deco mesh from the Dollar Tree. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start wrapping it around. And I need 18 pieces. Now you just go around until you have 18 pieces. So basically the whole roll. I'm just cutting along the edge and just hold it down and cut the other side. Now we're grabbing our yellow little pieces and we're going to find the middle and bring it together, kind of like we're bringing together a bow, just like that. We're just going to each one of the chenille wires. We're going to secure it in place, give it a good twist or two, and at this point I'm going to push my chenille wires down underneath the wreath. As I'm going along putting in my yellow poofs, I am trying to just open up all the loops as much as I can, and I highly recommend doing the yellow little bows a little longer than I did. I did 9 inches. I do recommend doing 10 to 12. That way they'll like go around a little bit better. I just had one roll of yellow on hand, so I had no choice but to make it, you know, the 9 inches. It's still doable. You just need to really kind of wrap it inside because this is Dollar Tree mesh and, you know, it can fray really easily. So I'm just kind of, you know, making my little bows a little tighter. To complete the wreath, I have a little owl that I got at Walmart about 3 years ago. And I'm just going to attach it somewhere towards the bottom so that I can use the front of the bow to kind of cover that little clip. And that's it. And our little owl is in place. And we have a little Harry Potter wreath. I think it turned out super, super cute. For this project, I do recommend a flat wreath. You can either cut out a cardboard piece or, like me, I am recycling a wreath I had on hand from before. It's nice and flat, so I knew it was going to work well. As you can see, I'm simply hot gluing the candy corn onto the wreath, and starting with my middle row, I'm facing all the candies in the same direction. When that middle row was complete, I'm grabbing more candy corn and I'm starting to hot glue them facing the opposite way of that middle row. That means the inside row and the outside row are going to be facing the opposite direction of my candy corn. At the end of the day, it is such a beautiful design. I absolutely love it. Now, for any edible DIYs, it is important to seal them. You can seal them with whatever sealant you have on hand or even with Mod Podge. For the bow, I'm using 260-inch ribbon. The first one is a black and white buffalo check, and the other one is an orange grosgrain ribbon. Next, I hot glued the orange ribbon onto the buffalo check ribbon. Then I found the center of the bow and made a simple bow. When I was done, I brought it together with a piece of wire. For a cute effect, I decided to add some ducktails for my bow. And I just cut from the outside to the inside while folding my ribbon in half. That way it's a nice even cut. To hang my wreath, I'm grabbing about a 6-inch piece of grosgrain ribbon and I'm going to hot glue it to the back of the wreath and then hot glue the bow straight in the center of the wreath. For this wreath, we are using a metal circle. I'll explain in a second where it came from. Some sort of centerpiece, a wired garland, some wooden beads, jute twine, and some of this sparkly vase filler. Grabbing this Dollar Tree wired garland and putting it around my circle here. And I used 6 pieces altogether. Now with the wired circle, that is actually the top of a garbage can that's from the Dollar Tree. I used the garbage can in a previous project a while ago, and I will insert the video right here so you can see how I used the rest of the garbage can. But I kept the rim, I kept the top, and this is what I'm doing with the top of the Dollar Tree garbage can. Now for the centerpiece. I'm grabbing some of these wooden beads, and these are 14 millimeters each in diameter. And at first I put 7 on, then measured and realized I wanted 1 more. So then I added the 8th bead. The ornament I'm using in the middle of my beads is actually a Dollar Tree ornament that I used in the previous project. Originally it did look like this, but I really loved it empty and clean. Now to make sure the tree is going to be centered, I'm grabbing a little mini bead and it's bigger than the little hole in the tree, and I'm just feeding it through, and that's just going to hold my Christmas tree centered without twisting in the middle of my wreath. Now I'm adding the same amount of beads to the right side that I already added to the left. After adjusting it to the height that I want, I'm going to attach both of the ends to the metal wreath. To decorate my wreath, I'm going to grab these vase fillers from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using the gold ones in different sizes and just hot glue them throughout the wreath. At this point, you can definitely stop and be done with the wreath, and I'll include a picture of what it would look like in a second, but I just felt like something needed to be put on the tree, so I continued and added a little bit of embellishment to the Christmas tree. To decorate the tree, I'm going to use another piece of wired garland about 4 inches in length, and I'm going to put it at the top of the tree. Now, if you're wondering why did I do that, there was greenery already on the tree. Yes, but that greenery was a lighter color and it would clash with my garland. This way, it matches and it looks really good. I'm just cutting that in the middle, hot gluing the garland pieces to the top of my tree, and then on top of that, I'm going to hot glue a gold little ball from the vase fillers. Let's get started on this wreath. I'm using this square wreath form that I found at the Dollar Tree, and I wish I can find more because these are so unique. And as you see, this is the little tag that came with it. And what I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using these burlap ribbon to wrap around the wreath, and then to decorate I am going to be using this gold and the green burlap from the Dollar Tree. I will also be using these gorgeous picks that I got at the Dollar Tree this year, and these that I got from the Dollar Tree last year. Look how pretty these are. Some of them are like, it's damaged just a tiny bit over here, but hey, all you have to do is turn it around and nobody can see. But yeah, those are so super cute. And if I feel like it's not full enough when I actually start decorating, I always have these on hand, you guys. These are always good to have, these wired garland ties, to buff up anything you're doing for Christmas, and especially with the Christmas trees that the Dollar Tree has. I have my little finger covering, and these are from the Dollar Tree. They come 3 in a pack. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the center here, and I'm just going to kind of cross over because I want it to go on an angle. And just give it a dab of hot glue right there, just so it holds it. Over here in the middle, I want the bottom of this part and the top of this part to overlap. That way we have a nice thick layer. There we go. Now the corners here are a little tricky, but you know what? Nothing we can't handle, right, you guys? Okay, a little bit of an angle here. Okay. So the way I do my corner is let me just pull it up. I will go to the corner and I will loop it back. So there's my loop right around the corner. And I'm going to give it just a tab of hot glue right here, just so it holds. And now I'm taking and I'm folding a little bit of this inside ribbon underneath here, because what I want to do is I want to give it a nice secure corner right here. And I'm bringing my other edge straight up to the corner. And this is where we're gonna go up again. Okay, here we have another corner going on. My last loop, I'm looping it over here in the corner, bringing it back and covering that up, and over here where it overlaps, I'm going to give a little dab of hot glue. Just, I mean, you guys, dab, 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 like tiny, tiny, tiny. Because I don't want too much of the hot glue going through, and I'm just using kind of just to bring it together and hold it. And I'm going to take a little bit of this and push it in so I can squeeze it in a little bit so that it doesn't look too crunched up. And I'm going to go over and cover this area. And then this area that's all wrinkly, we're gonna cover with this. Straighten that out a little bit, and then we move on. So with this ending, we're just going to start a new one, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to overlap, make sure it's not gonna show. I even cut it down just a tiny bit. Now it's almost nice and dry. Now, if I would have finished a little bit earlier, like on the front, I would have actually came back to the back and cut that piece off, because I'd rather cut a piece off than have this in the front somewhere. Okay, we are ready to continue, and I will be doing the same thing, just moving along overlapping really, oops, sorry about that, you guys. Overlapping really nicely. And I'm just overlapping by half of the ribbon. That way you get double layer.
I've been working so much lately, I can barely find the time to sleep. Yeah, I spend my time running around, keeping people pleased. But this is my favorite holiday. It's a chance to start.
Okay, you guys, so I'm coming to the end and I have a little piece left. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm not going to go over here because I'm going to have a bow in this corner anyway. And I'm just going to just make sure that this part is covered. And yes, this part is going to go in the front, but there will be greenery here, so that part will be covered also. Okay, this wreath looks really clean, very beautiful, and we are going to work on this corner right here. And the way I'm going to do it is you can either hang it like this, or you could hang it like in a diamond shape. So I'll kind of be working with a diamond shape, and then we see what we will do. The first thing I want to do is I want to do the greenery and see if I need to add any. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to separate the little greenery here, and I'm going to put this gold in between, so to make it look like it was all one piece. You know what? I feel like this greenery is not really matching to this. Both of these are Dollar Tree pieces. Are they different greenery pieces? Look at this one. This one's not bad. So there we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece and wrap it around. And I'm going to bend about 1 inch of this pick. Okay, I like that. So I did the same thing to the second one as I did to the first one. I got the wired garland, wrapped it around, and I'm just going to hot glue it in place. All right, let's get started on the bow. So here is the idea. It's to use this gold one and the green one, because we have gold and we have green. So we have gold and we have green, because otherwise the gold is not going to stand out that much. This way, see? And then I thought it's just a little dark. Just the whole project seems a little bit dark and not enough white. So I thought on top of that to bring in some white. I don't know how much we have left here. Ooh, we don't have a lot left. To bring in some of this white. When I do bows like this, what I like to do is, because the endings are so kind of rugged, so here's what I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to do is bring it together, hold it in place. There you go. And I'm going to fold it.
Yeah, spend my time running around.
And this time I'm going to do 2 dabs on the sides. So I got 12, about 24 inches is my bow. Okay, so now that I have it nice and secured, I'm just going to pull it down. And this bow is going to be 24 inches. So if you're doing the same ribbon or a similar ribbon, you're going to need about 24 inches for this particular bow. And I just went with that because that's how long my white ribbon was. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to fold it in half and do some hot gluing over here. Let's find our center. After I found my center, I'm going to make a simple bow going one way and going the other way.
And when we wake up in the morning, I'm gonna play those carols that you love. We'll be singing all them.
Here's how I bring these together usually. I fold it in half, and then 1 down and 2 down. And that is how I usually bring them together. I'm using a floral wire for this bow today.
Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories.
Don't make it too tight. That way you can adjust it if you want. And there you go, you guys. I think this bow turned out absolutely cute. I feel like I want more greenery here now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another piece, I'm going to cut it in half. These wire cutters are not impressing me over here. My husband just got me a new pair. I need to find them. Okay, so what I want to do is I would just want to give more greenery over here to cover this area up. Right there, see? There you go. I feel a lot better about that. And then when I put this on, it's gonna look good. Okay, that's a little better. See, sometimes you just, as you're working, you just see something here, something there, need to improve here, need to improve there, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Okay, to finish up this bow, obviously, I'm not gonna leave the wire right there. I'm going to take another piece of this grosgrain ribbon that I absolutely love. I'm a huge fan of my grosgrain ribbon. 3 inches of the grosgrain ribbon, 2 to 3 inches, depends on how thick your ribbon is on your bow. I just feel like using grosgrain ribbon in my projects, it makes it look so so much more expensive. Grosgrain ribbon is not cheap, and it's not expensive either. It's not like, you know, it's covered in gold pieces or whatever, but still, it's just such an elegant and beautiful ribbon. I love using it. All right, let's see what we have here. I'm going to poof these guys up. Very, very happy about that. Okay, I'm going to get started with 2 of these green wreaths from the Dollar Tree, and I'm using 2 because they are a little bit on the sparse side. Oh gosh, I guess this is the back of it. You can definitely just see all the wiring. We are going to turn that upside down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open one up and make it flat, basically, so then I can put the second one right on top. And obviously, because this one is really, really sparse, you could basically see the skeleton kind of on this one. That's definitely going to be my bottom one.
Baby, this year it's just gonna be you and me. Hang by the fire and chill. Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. Oh, and I've been longing to hold you close. Forget about everyone.
Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I have 3 pieces left of this wired garland. This one seems a little bit shorter, but I'm going to just fold this in half. And I think I'm going to get the Dollar Tree actual garland because this is, I just feel like it's not going to be enough.
I've been wrapping presents for you. I've been hanging marbles in the tree. And I've lit my house with Christmas lights. So you should come back home to me. And when we wake up in the morning, I'm gonna play those carols.
Okay, you guys, I think it's down to this. I am grabbing the garland because it's just not enough. And I'm just going by the folds of the garland, just how it came. About 7 to 10 inches. And I just want to fill it in. There's holes. So you want, you know, this garland will actually be really nice because it's fluffy and full. Okay, that's much better. I feel like, look at this. This is already starting to look better than this. And I just want to make sure I have enough. So I'm just going to jump throughout the areas. Now to work on the little houses. Look at these cute little ornaments I found at the Dollar Tree. And because they have these little tops, the first thing I'm going to do is remove all these tops. And let me just work on one so you see what I'm going to do here. Then I'm going to grab some paint. Any paint will do, acrylic. I'm just using chalk paint because it'll dry faster. And then we're going to bring glitter in. Now, one of the reasons that's okay to do, because look at all of this glitter going on over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make this little part look like a chimney. And the reason I'm grabbing white is because we want to make it look like there's snow on it. And so I'm just going to go around like this really quickly, not a big deal. Bring on the glitter. When this dries, what is going to make it look like a chimney is I'm going to grab a piece of cotton and I'm going to, I don't know how I'm exactly going to do this. I'm grabbing a piece of cotton here. I'm gonna fold it in half like this. I don't know how big I want it. And then I'm going to shove this little piece of cotton in the chimney. Oh my goodness, you guys, this is just too cute. Look at that, we have a house and we have a little chimney with smoke coming out. How adorable is that? But these little houses are cracking me up. Just take a look. So sweet and cute. I am just ecstatic. Okay, so now let's actually bring things together. I have the wreath right here and you have a few options here. You could do these Christmas trees from the Dollar Tree, and these are the green ones and then the white ones. I use these as props all the time, and I tried putting these on and it just does not work because I just feel like these are clashing in their own way, and then the white ones are kind of clashing too. They're pretty, but you need a lot of them to work, and I just have like the really tall ones and the short ones. So what you could do if you have these is kind of just do the houses right here. But because I'm doing the full wreath, I'm going to do something else. I have these florals from the Dollar Tree. And these are so easy to come off. You just pop them off and look at these. They look like little Christmas trees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove, because I feel like they're a little too long for the houses. I mean, some of them could be taller like that, but in most cases, I'm going to remove this bottom petal right there. And I'm going to have this sweet little Christmas tree, and it works really well with the little house.
The wonders of life got the prettiest side for everyone to enjoy. Standing up close by the Christmas tree, glimmering light, I am right where I wanna be. I will be home for a couple of days, wander around with you. You and me in the cold, thought it'd never be true. Wherever I go, I got you. Oh, I have stopped running.
Okay, looks like I have one little house left over. I didn't want it to be too crowded either, so I'm just going to continue. But I am going to hot glue the little homes.
Some kind of love, my friend, I'll pray it will never end. Do you like to be here too? It's Christmas, and outside snow's glistening. It's just you and me.
These trees are not the easiest because they are bare, so I try to find the side where it's more flat, kind of like this, so I have room to put the glue in and just start sticking them everywhere.
At the door, you said, I wish this will never be over. Darling, it's time for your present. Come over here. Now it is time to get out in the snow.
Okay, at this point I feel like I have plenty of gold. Now I'm going to step back and start adding some cotton. And this we're just going to stick underneath the homes. And I'm just going to unwrap it a little bit. Divide it in half. And just kind of fluff the half out. Kind of round the edges. And I'm just going to put it underneath the home. And these have been so popular. Martha Stewart. I mean, just so many people have been doing these homes. And so I am not sure who it was, but one of my beautiful subscribers has asked me to do this wreath. So I am so glad she did because I'm having a blast. And you know what? I'm going to hot glue it on here because I feel like it's kind of hanging in the air, so that's just more secure. Are you guys starting to see it now? The cotton's going underneath the houses. It's starting to look up. Oh, it's just starting to look so cute.
You and me tonight. It's just you and me tonight.
Started on our Magnolia leaf wreath, we're going to need a few things. So the first thing we're going to need is some sort of a wreath form. This is a Dollar Tree wreath form that we're all familiar with, and I'm actually repurposing this one because we are going to be covering it with paper. You could have one that's, you know, a little damaged or, you know, previously used for another season. So I have that, and then I do have a book that I'm going to be repurposing. And this is a diet book, so I thought this was very appropriate way to use a diet book, especially a diet that didn't work for me. Alrighty, now I'm going to get started by, this is just a cardstock, one of those, you know, like a notebook kind of, you know, cardstock that holds like a notebook shape or something. So any really cardstock you want to use. And I have a Magnolia leaf, but for this particular wreath, I thought it's way, way, way too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace it and then just kind of make it smaller. You know, just so I have kind of like an approximate shape. But if you don't have a Magnolia wreath, honestly, just draw a big eye. Because that's kind of what it looks like. Just like a big eye. And I'm just going to kind of... To make a smaller one, I'm just going to trace about 1/2 inch in, and I think that'll make a really good size. And then we're gonna cut it off. We really don't need that little point, so I'm going to cut it off right there. Oh, I don't know if you guys can see. So this is the original size, and this is the one that I cut off. And let me see. I think that's a good shape for this. So let me measure it, so you guys at least know how big it is. Let me do it in inches. So it is about almost 2 inches wide, like it's 1 3/4 inches. And then here I'm going to cut it off at 3.5 inches. Okay, now for our book, I'm just going to grab a knife and start cutting the pages. Alright, now I'm just going to be tracing and cutting out all these leaves. I'm not sure how many leaves I'm going to end up using, but I will just let you know at the end how many I'm going to end up using for my particular wreath. Okay, I'm going to continue doing this until I have plenty of leaves, but this part is going to be quite boring, so I'm going to come back when I'm all done cutting all of these leaves out. All right, you guys, I have all my beautiful leaves right here, all cut up, and I'm also getting some Elmer's glue. I've had this for a while. So I'm like, this is going to be a perfect project to use some of this glue up. And I'm just going to pour some in a little cup. There you go. And then I have, ooh, flying in my hands, I have a little brush. You don't need a big one. And what I'm going to do is just 2/3 of the leaf right here. I'm just going to put the Elmer's glue on. Then I'm getting some of this glitter, and I'm going to put the glitter on there. And I have a little leaf. Look how pretty this is going to be. And I'm just going to let it dry. Let me work on the second one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut a few sheets into little strips, and I'm making about 1-inch strips. Okay, I have this all in paper. Now, here are the leaves. I don't know why they are making me so happy. If you want to make sure the glitter is not going to go anywhere, you could put some Mod Podge on it, but that is up to you. As you can see, they did curl up. If you look them this way, they curled up like this. But when you're putting them on the wreath, they'll straighten out, so that's okay. Don't worry about that part. But yeah, here are all the leaves. And I'm just going to start hot gluing them. And I'm not going to keep them like in a straight line. I want them to be kind of sporadic here and there. Alright, keeping in the Christmas spirit, I figure since we have all these beautiful glittered leaves, I'm going to use this ribbon, and this is from the Dollar Tree, and it has this little kind of like shimmer, and they go really nicely together. And let me see here, I want a pretty long tail, so you can always make it shorter, you can't make it longer. And I'm going to make a sweet little bow, not too big. And I'm making a simple bow. Just a dab right here. Tiny dab right there. And bring it together. There you go. This is one of these ribbons you do want to seal with singeing. And I'm just going to singe the edge really, really quickly. There you go. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. This one's really off. Okay, so this is going nowhere. It's nice and safe right there. Then I'm just going to cut a little piece for the center. Window shopping, listening to the sound from some street cry. I found a spot in my wreath. Where was it? Oh, here. I left it kind of bare so I can put the ribbon right here, and I don't want it too long. And I'm just going to hot glue it to the back. All right, so today I'm using this tiny little 8-inch wreath comparing to the 14-inch wreath that we usually use. This is going to be for a sweet little girl, and I'm very excited to do this. Here is the little Minnie Mouse that I'm going to be using. Then I'm going to be using this ornament from the Dollar Tree. Everything's from the Dollar Tree, including my little Minnie Mouse. Then I'm just going to be using 3 rolls, 2 white, 1 pink. And then you need some sort of either measuring mat. This is not really necessary. And some chenille wires. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these in half. Now, usually when I'm making like the curly wreath, I cut these in 3. But today we're going to cut in 2 just because of when we're bringing the deco mesh together. It is more comfortable to be using it when it's in half. Okay, so we got that. And then let's start on this Minnie Mouse. I just want to open it and see how I can work with it. And I'm really hoping this is going to work. All right, so this part is rubber, just like I thought. And this part is really glued on. So it looks like I might be using my cutters right here. Oh, this is not bad, you guys. Not bad at all. Just using these guys. And I think I'm just going to cut them in. And what I'm trying to do is trying to remove this sharpener away from the Minnie Mouse. So please use caution because you are just jamming this in here. So let's see here. I'm wondering if using some kind of a little knife would be a little better. Oh, this seems to be a little better. All right, and I have my intact Minnie Mouse right here that is going to go right on the snowflake. Okay, so let's just finish up the ornament so that way we have it ready at the end. Before I put my little Minnie Mouse on top of my snowflake, I am going to grab another piece of chenille and I'm going to hot glue it in the middle right here. Let me make sure I have my middle. I'm going to use this chenille piece to attach to my little wreath a little later. And so on top of it, I'm just going to twist it so it stays in place while it's drying. And then on top of it, I'm going to put my little Minnie Mouse. I'm completely in love with this sweet little Minnie Mouse. You are going to need 3 rolls of deco mesh from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to be using 2 whites and 1 pink. I want this to look more bright and pretty, and I wish the pink was a little bit lighter, but that's the only one the Dollar Tree had. So we are going to do one of the easiest wreaths you can possibly do, and that is the one where you just roll out. You put 1, and then you roll out a second one, which is my pink. And then on top of that, you are going to roll another white. If you're starting out and working with deco mesh, this is the wreath for you, or this style of wreath. And so I'm going to start by just securing 1. I usually use zip ties for this, because I just feel like it can have a nice secure tail with this, but we are just going to be using this chenille wire. And now I'm going to attach it to this little crossing right here so that it stays in place. And I really want to make sure it's secure. And if you want to bring this back in, make sure it's not going to go anywhere, you could definitely just wrap it around again and secure it that way. So this is the part where you decide how big you want your loops to be. Don't forget, this is an 8-inch wreath, so you don't need them to be that big. Okay, so I don't think I need to have them more than 6 inches. I just yeah, I think I like that. Okay, another 6 inches. Gather, bring it together, and tie it in the back in the middle row. So I'm done with one section. If you look in the back, I know I'll make it all pretty later. There's 3 sections in this wreath. I'm only done with one, and I did 8 loops, 6 inches each, and I still have enough to do the rest of it. If you are going to use this technique on a 14-inch wreath, you are going to need 6 of these, because 3 of these are going to be enough for half of the 14-inch wreath. That is from the Dollar Tree, and I have done those before. I'll insert one of my previous videos where I use this technique, but yeah. We will continue, and I'll just finish up the work, and then we'll start opening them up, and that's the fun part. Okay, you guys, so I don't like a messy back, especially, you know, if it gets put on like a glass door or something. So what I'm doing is, because these tails are long enough, I'm kind of twisting them, almost like braiding, like French braiding, and I'm just tagging one on top of the other, and anything sharp goes back. And look how smooth this is. Instead of all this mess, it looks nice, clean. And I'm just twisting them together. See? Look at that. Nice, clean little line. Okay, so you could ideally, if you wanted to, leave it at that and then add your snowflake on top. And it's going to look actually pretty sweet. But I do like to open mine up. That's the whole point of doing this technique. And all I'm doing is unraveling and bring that pink out in the middle. Now you can choose to either do the pink on the side, pink here. I'm just actually going to keep the pink in the middle of my 2 white pieces, just because it's going to be a beautiful balance. So one white is going to one side and the other white is going to the other side, and the pink is going to be in the middle. And especially that this wreath is so small, it's going to look pretty. All right, I fluffed it out, and we have the white in the center, then pink, and then white on the outside. And this turned out so super cute. Now I'm going to get my centerpiece, and as you remember, we attached the chenille wire on first, and that's because we're just going to feed it through here. Let's turn this upside down. And I'm just going to attach it to probably this inner one. I don't want it to be too tight either. And then just attach it around that wire. And then the same thing on the other side. See, and it looks nice and clean here. Switch it over. All right, you could definitely leave this wreath as it is. I'm going to go one step further, and I'm going to grab these pom-poms. I'm going to start with these medium-sized pom-poms and spread them throughout the wreath. And because I know that's not enough, I am going to take the really, really tiny ones, because there's quite a bit of those. And then very carefully, don't hurt yourself there, just hot glue these. Okay, I feel like I have enough of the white little pom-poms on here. And the reason I did this is because the bow on the Minnie has little polka dots, and it just brought the whole wreath together. And I do think it looks super, super cute What do you guys think?
Now it is time to get out in the snow, lighting a light with you.
I'm starting this project with a foam Dollar Tree wreath and also a vintage ribbon that I had on hand. It is a gorgeous olive color and I decided to use it for this wreath. To get this project started, I'm hot gluing the ribbon in place, wrapping it around the wreath all the way around and hot gluing it in place once again. Next, I'm grabbing some branches that I found on my walk in a forest preserve and I painted them white, gave most of them 2 coats of chalk paint. I'm going to have branches going horizontally and vertically, and I'm just overlaying them, making them fit in the middle so it's not too bulky, and just trying to work them in so they fit nice and perfect. And I'm trying to go outside the wreath a little bit. And if you don't like the way it's sticking out, you can always just cut it down with wire cutters, and that's why I have those on my table. As I find a perfect spot for each branch, I'm hot gluing them in place straight to the wreath and also to each other. For greenery, I'm using my favorite spring florals from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just picking out longer branches that I thought would look really nice, and then I'm grabbing some of the ones with the yellow flowers just because I thought it would look so beautiful with the olive ribbon. And to top it all off, in the center I'm attaching a rose that I got at Goodwill. I'll attach the video where I hauled this rose along with some other things. To hang the wreath, I'm just grabbing a leftover piece of ribbon from a previous project and making a little loop. Today we are making a gorgeous wreath that I found on Etsy for $139.99, and I'm going to make it basically for next to nothing. I have some left over. This is the spring greenery from the Dollar Tree. This is pine cones. This one is from the Dollar Tree, and the rest were picked. This is Trash to Treasure. This, I don't even know how old these little guys are. And then these little bundles I found at Joann Fabrics, and they were $2.99, and I believe I got them either at 80 or 90% off. Next, you will recognize this from the Dollar Tree. The ring is from the Dollar Tree, and then the magnolias that I'm using I got also on a huge discount. I'll throw in a video here. And this was $14.99, and then I got the discount from Michael's. To get started, I'm going to frost up a few things. Since these are frosted, I'm going to put them on the side. I'm going to pick the magnolia leaves because I want to frost them up just a little bit with some sparkles. These I'm going to also frost up just a tiny bit. They are a light green, but I want to just put a little bit of white shimmer on them and just throw glitter on top of that because this is going to be a very elegant wreath. These guys I'm not going to touch, so I'm going to put these on the side. And then these I am going to frost up a little bit also with some paint and then glitter. As you see a little paw over here, he's gotta be closed. I actually like the fact that the paint I'm using is pretty dry because I kind of want that effect of just a little bit. I don't want it to be too much. If you're working with fresh paint, I would just kind of brush against something and then on the leaf. Okay, you could do this one of two ways. You can start with the flowers or you could start with the greenery. I decided to start with the flowers, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick the 5 flowers just like they have 5 there. And first I want to see if this wreath may be a little bit too small. It just might be. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit different, but it's okay. You know, we're making a version of the wreath. We're not making the exact same wreath. We're making a version of that wreath. You can always hot glue it later. So now we have a beginning. Now all we have to do is start gluing the leaves, the greenery, and filling this up. Now I'm just putting a dab of hot glue, and then my gorgeous magnolia is right in there. If you feel the leaf is falling a little bit, turn it around, give it some hot glue on top, let it cool, and you just formed a little bit of a bridge right there. Just let it cool, let it sit there, let it cool, and that's it. Your leaf will stand up. Because I'm limited on these, I'm just spreading them throughout because I want to make sure to get some in the middle too. Okay, so this is what we're looking like so far. It looks sparse, but that's all right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this greenery from the Dollar Tree, and it's the fern. And it has this white stuff on it and this gorgeous, gorgeous sparkle. I start just taking it apart because they do have, see, like these two bundles, so I'm going to take those. I'm hot gluing this piece of fern, and then I'm going to grab one of these and I'm going to hot glue it right on top. And now you're going to start to see the picture of how the wreath is going to look like. So once again, we're going to get a big piece of fern, put it on here, whichever way you feel like it needs to go. Okay, now I'm bringing more of these and I'm going to fill up any like naked areas. Here's a little piece right here. I'm going to put it this way. I'm just looking behind, making sure that it's filled all throughout. I don't think I'm going to be using any of these. I just don't think I need it. I think this is filling up really nicely. Now I'm just going to put my little pine cones here and there. To finish up this wreath, I will be using these pretty little picks from Joann Fabric, and I got these on a huge discount, so not so bad, but originally they were $2.99. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put them behind anywhere that I see empty spaces. But I want to put them behind the florals because I feel like the space behind the florals is empty. So I'm just going straight into the greenery and I'm going on an angle. And I'm just going to kind of do the same thing. Here is my flower and I'm going to insert it around there because of the length of the picks. I'm just inserting them. There you go. This one went straight and didn't come out anywhere. And I'm just spreading it out where I feel like. So I'm going to say that this wreath is under $7 with everything that I put in here. So not bad at all. And I'm just going to adjust it here and there. And that's it. I think it turned out absolutely stunning. So today we are going to be using this beautiful Dollar Tree 21-inch mesh, and it's 5 yards. Like regular rolls at other craft stores are usually 10 yards. So for $1, this is really incredible. Okay, next thing you are going to need is a wreath form, and I was lucky enough to get this neutral one that is going to mesh perfectly, and this is the 14-inch, as I said. And I am going to use these chenille wires. Mine just happened to be a little on the sparkly side. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is put the chenille wires on our form. There are 6 sections in this wreath. So what I'm going to do is one is going to go on the 2 inner rings.
Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memory.
On the 2 outside rings, we are going to put 2 in each section. So each section is going to have 3 chenille wires. 1 in the middle on the front end and 2 in the back.
I've been hanging marbles in the tree, and I've lit
Okay, you guys, one more time. Each section of my wreath form has 3 chenille wires. 1 goes in the middle on the inside 2, and then 2 go on the outside. So 3 in each section. Now let's get our mesh. I'm working around a cat over here. I don't know if you see this little tail right here. I'm trying to work around a little kitty over here. Okay, so I'm going to start together. I just grab it in the middle and then just kind of roll up and then roll down. So you have a nice and even poof. And I tried to even it out for the first one. Okay. You can start outside in, inside out. I kind of work my way from inside to out. But what I'm going to do is I like to secure it with a zip tie, especially the first one. So I have it here, but I'm going to also do it with a zip tie. I do this for the first one and the last one, obviously, because there's no point to do otherwise. When I use zip ties for this, I sleep better at night, I have to admit. All right. So we are making 10-inch loops. I take the beginning, and my 10-inch is right here. And I'm just going to grab it where my 10-inch is, and I'm going to poof it in, kind of poof it up. And then I'm going to move on to my next one, which is right here, and give it 2 twists. Okay, I'm starting right here. 10 inches once again, poof up. We're going to move to the next one. Okay, I made a full circle. Look how beautiful it is. Made a full circle, and I'm going to continue making my 10-inch poofs. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to move on straight to the back, and then I'm going to go around the outside, continuing with the same 10-inch poofs.
everything but you. These are the good times with you. Baby, this year.
Last poof, and it's literally 10 inches. So I'm going to try to make as little of a tail as possible. And I'm going to zip tie it to the 3rd ring. Leo, my little nosy Leo. So now I'm going to go around and just poof everything out. So for the ribbon, I decided to use 2 types of ribbon, and this is going to be this gorgeous buffalo check and also this white one. So what we need to do is we're going to cut these into 12-inch strips. I just like using my ruler, and then you can just go back and forth. I really need to do one of those boards that a lot of DIYers use, but I really just use my ruler and go for it. You're going to need 18 of each ribbon.
Again, baby, this year it's just gonna be you and me.
Okay, I got all my ribbon, and as you see, I am being supervised by Leo over here. Hi, baby. Say hi to everyone on camera. Say hello, my little pretty. I'm surprised, all this light, and he could not be bothered. He's like, yeah, whatever, ma. So the first thing I do is I make all the ducktails for the ribbon. Okay, I cut all the ribbon up. And by the way, if you do like to fold like I do, make sure you fold with the bright side inside, because when you tie the ribbon, it's going to unfold. So just kind of inside out, or whatever you want to call it. But here's the outside of the ribbon, here's the inside of the ribbon. And I fold it in before I cut it. Okay, grabbing one of each, and I'm just putting them together. And I'm going to tie them on each one of the sections. Just give it a few twists there. And I'm going to do this all the way around. So when I do twist, I then pull them back so they're not sticking up, because I know I'm done with them. So here too, I'm going to try to twist a few times, just pull them back. And then what I like to do in the back is I just twist it in the back and then just kind of go around until it's nice and secure. Okay, I just did these three, and look how clean it is. Clean up here, nice up here, and then I'll open them up and make them all pretty at the end when I'm done with all the ribbons. So I'm just going to go right now all along and put all my ribbon in. Guys, all my ribbon is on, and I'm starting to poof it out. And what I'm doing is just kind of doing a little crisscross with the red ribbon and the white ribbon. I'm just going to go all along and do that to all the sides. Okay. So now I'm just trying to make the ribbon nice. And what I do is I'll put the white ribbon going one way, and then the second ribbon going another way, and then just going along and doing the same thing everywhere. I'm going to continue and finish up doing this, and now we need to get started on our centerpiece. I decided to get this peace sign. I'm going to give this little board 2 coats of white chalk paint, and this is from Crafter's Corner from the Dollar Tree. All right, I have my plank, it's nice and dry. The first thing I'm going to do is on whatever the backside is for your plank, grab 2 more chenille wires, fold them in half, give yourself, I kind of just do the 2-finger thing, and that way, like, I just make it flat. And then I'm going to put it on the side, hot glue it in place. Then I'm going to grab my peace sign and just put it in the middle. And I'm lightly just putting it on top, flipping it. And I'm just going to use the first 2 to secure it on one side. Don't do it too tight, because sometimes I tend to do it a little too tight and pull it back. You can always pull it tighter, is what I'm saying. And then here's the other side. All right, you guys, I think that's it. I think it looks pretty. I'm just straightening out all the ribbons at this point, and I'm going to hang it up on my front door. Let's get started on this wreath. We are doing the candy cane wreath today. Usually on a 14-inch or Dollar Tree wreath, I use 6 of these Dollar Tree Deco meshes. And I don't think that I'm going to need more for this candy cane. I think we can definitely make it work, and it's going to be nice and full. So here's the first thing that we're going to do. We need to cut up all of these pieces of mesh here. So I like to cut my mesh anywhere from 6 to 7 inches. And what I do is I just sit there watching TV, cut all of these up, and then start working on my wreath. So if you're one of those people that are thinking like, Nadia, this is so tedious, I'm not going to do it, this is gonna take me forever. Well, it's going to take you a little bit of watching TV and just sitting there and cutting. That's it. And then just bring it together, and that'll be our next step. So for now, I'm just going to take my time, sit here, and I'm going to cut all of these up. All right, now that I have my deco mesh all cut up, it's time to make my little bundles. And the bundles are usually a set of 3. And because we are only using 2 styles of deco mesh, it's going to be red, red, white, and white, white, red. And so what I do is I separate them into 2 different containers. As you see, I already made a few. And I'll tell you this, you guys, it took me about 2 hours, like really, really slow. I was actually in a Zoom meeting doing these, and I was just sitting there and doing them like a slow pace. It took me 2 hours to bring all the bundles together and cut these little guys up. All right, so let's see how we bring them together. You're going to need chenille wires. Some people cut them in half. Some people cut them in 3. I cut them in 3. I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's enough wire to bring it together and then put it on your wreath. Because what do you do on your wreath when it's too long? I'm just going to put it on one of the wires. I'm not gonna, you know, if you're going to be putting them on both wires, then yeah, I would use half. But if you're just going to be using this thin little wire for it, then it doesn't make sense to have a really, really long wire. All right, so here's how I do. I usually grab 1, 2, 3 of each color. 1, 2, 3. And then, and then I make 2 white, 1 red, and then 2 red and 1 white. And then I just make them, and I just let it curl up naturally. Just let it curl up. And I'll throw my scissors on top, put it just a little bit to the side. And then I'm going to do the white one. Put it across like this. And then the last one. There you go. And I like to have a nice crisscross with the contrasting color in the middle. And now I'm just going to bring it together. And really just a tight little squeeze right there, and that's it. That's all you do. And this is plenty to put on your wreath. All right, we are going to be putting our little bundles on the 2nd and 3rd, so on the 2 middle rows. I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to start with the inside row. And I'm just going to be going in and out using my 2 different bundles. Twisting them in the back. That's all I'm doing right now, is just twisting them. And so since I started with white, white, red, on this part I'm going to start with red, red, white. All right, I did 8 in this one section. So 4 on one row, 4 in another, and it looks pretty solid. And I'll just continue going all the way around, having 4 on each little section. Obviously here it's going to be a little bit more. This section is a little wider, but we will see. All right, you guys, this is where we are so far. So we have going towards, okay, you guys, so this is what we have so far. Look how thick this is. Very thick and beautiful. Okay, so we've been going 8 per section. So 4 per each little row right here, because we're only using the 2 inner rows. Here, I only have 3 in here in this little groove in the center, or the one that's closer to the center. And here I have 6. Because I'm kind of coming to the end of my little bundles, I'm going to start from this end and go this way, because it could just squeeze in here and it'll be okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 8 here, and then basically the remaining in this section. Let's get going. Okay, you guys, I finished up what I had in this section right here, and it does look so full. And you guys, this thing is humongous, absolutely humongous. Now I'm just going to trim it up to make sure there's nothing hanging, you know, like loose little threads like this, and then we are going to decorate it a little bit. All right, now it's time to warm up your glue guns. We are going to make a little centerpiece right here for our little mesh candy cane. I'm going to just grab a piece of felt, and this one I believe is from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to make a circle. Just fold it in 4 and made a circle. Oh, that doesn't look like a circle. All right. I think I could have done better just freehand. Yeah, all right, that'll work. Alrighty, now I'm grabbing my grosgrain ribbon from the Dollar Tree, which I absolutely love. And I'm going to measure of 8 inches. And I'm going to just go back and forth. So I'm going to make kind of like little petals with these. I don't know how many I'm going to use, so to start off, I'll maybe do 6. We're going to make kind of little petals. So we're going to bring our little ribbon together, and this part needs to be facing inside. So, do you see what I mean? The petal is inside, and there's your outside. Now I'm going to just start hot gluing them onto my felt. And I'm just hot gluing it straight onto my Deco mesh. It'll hold it. And then this, I'm thinking somewhere around there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put hot glue on top and hot glue it to the bottom of my red piece of felt. Just making sure everything is nice and secure. Give it extra hot glue. You know, this is Dollar Tree flowers. Let's not kid ourselves here. All right, I think it's time to display this baby. For this wreath, I'm going to be using 2 microfiber pads from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going right in between the stitch lines to cut each microfiber pad into 4 sections. Now I'm using some hot glue, attaching strips to the wreath and just wrapping them all the way around. Now I'm grabbing this pick and I'm just grabbing the greenery from it and hot gluing it in the top center of the wreath. I love the greenery because it's already painted white a little bit and it looks frosty. Next, let's do the bow. I'm going to start by approximating how big I want my bow and then just cutting that ribbon down. And I'm using this burlap ribbon with lace over it, and I'm grabbing some polka dot grosgrain ribbon and hot gluing it right on top of the lace, securing each end to the back of the burlap. Now I'm just making my simple bow, bringing it together with a piece of floral wire in the middle and hot gluing it to the top center of the wreath. Using another pick from the Dollar Tree, I'm just grabbing the berries, then cutting 2 little strips to put on top of the greenery and a small piece of berries to hot glue in the middle of the bow. For this wreath, I'm using the Woodland wreath from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to give it 1 coat of Rust-Oleum chalk paint. Next, I'm grabbing 10 pine cones and I will give them a coat of white chalk paint. Now that my pine cones are nice and dry and they have a good white base, I'm going in with a pretty pink and I'm giving all the pine cones a good coat of that beautiful pink paint. Next, I'm grabbing some Mod Podge and I'm going to put glitter right on top of those pine cones. They will give such an elegant and beautiful addition to my wreath. For this wreath, I will also be using these mini ornaments, then the silver and white iridescent vase fillers, a few of these star vase fillers from the 4th of July, and then I'm going to be using the fern greenery as my base. I'm going to decorate 3/4 of my wreath, leaving 1/4 empty just as it is. So that's why I'm starting with my fern so I can see the edges of where I'm going to be working. Then I'm just grabbing all this greenery that I had left over from previous projects and just hot gluing it all around the section that I'm working on. Next, I'm grabbing the mini silver ornaments and I'm just popping off the little tops from them and then just hot gluing them all around the wreath. You want to start with those because those are your bigger pieces before we get into the smaller one. Next, I'm using the stars because those are also quite big comparing to the other pieces. Then I'm just working on my white iridescent and silver vase fillers. Now for the pine cones, I'm just balancing everything out and trying to spread them out throughout the wreath. And if there was any spots open, I went back and filled in with the mini little vase fillers. To hang my wreath, I'm grabbing a piece of ribbon I had on hand, feeding it through the vines in the back of the wreath, making a little knot, and I'm ready to hang my wreath. For this super easy wreath, I'm going to use this scarf that I found at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to actually use 2 of them. And the first thing I did was cut my foam wreath so I can feed the scarf through. And then I'm just going to undo the edges. Without cutting, I just unstitched it so I don't waste any of the scarf. And I'm just feeding it onto my wreath. To bring my wreath back together, I did try to use some hot glue, but that was a definite fail because it just melted the foam. So I just did a few layers of this clear packing tape and it worked absolutely fine. For the bow, I will be using this buffalo check ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I want a bigger tail on here, so I just measured my tail. Then I'm going to do 4 loops, meaning 2 loops on each side of my bow, and bring it together with a piece of floral wire. To prevent fraying and to make sure my tail is nice and pretty, I'm going to fold the edge over about 1/4 of an inch, put some hot glue right there, and then fold my tail into a little triangle. And then I'm going to pinch the edge and the triangle to make sure it's nice and crisp. Next, I'm hot gluing the bow straight onto the wreath form. You can also just use a string and tie it on. For the bow tails, we are going to be using the ribbon method. All I'm doing is folding the ribbon under and pinching it in the back so you have a nice smooth loop in the front. And as you can see, I'm going to do it twice for each one of the tails. As you can see here, I tried a red pom-pom on here and I just did not like the way it looked, so I cut it off and I grabbed 3 cotton balls and hot glued them to the center of the ribbon, and oh my goodness, it made all the difference in the world. To hang this wreath, I'm just grabbing a piece of ribbon I had on hand, and it was a perfect red match. And I'm just cutting it off and pinning both of the ends together and straight onto the foam wreath. For this wreath, we are going to be using 6 rolls of this decorative mesh, and we're going to cut the mesh into 14-inch strips. You are going to have 7 per roll. To cover the green foam, I'm using a roll of grosgrain ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and if you go slow and hot glue throughout the way, 1 roll will be enough. Now I'm just taking each one of the strips, folding them in half, and tying them on the side of the wreath. That's it. I'm not even double tying. Because of the type of mesh this is, it's not going to slide and it's going to stay pretty secure. Now I'm going to go all the way around the wreath using up all my strips. For decor, I'm using these ornaments from the Dollar Tree, and the first thing I wanted to do is cover those little holes on top. So I'm just using a hot glue gun, and using a finger protector, I'm just smoothing the hot glue over the ornament. Next, I'm painting both of the ornaments in a Craft Smart acrylic paint called Ocean Breeze. I'm just giving both of the ornaments 1 coat. I'm giving my ornaments a layer of Mod Podge and then using this gorgeous chunky glitter, and it's called Snowy Surprise. I got it at Walmart, and I'm going to give it a nice coat on top of these trees. I wanted the glitter to look like snow on top of the trees. Just so you guys can see the difference, here's a tree with glitter and here's one without glitter. What do you think? Not a big glitter person myself, but this looks absolutely stunning. Let me know what you think. Now I'm just glittering up the second tree, and I'm going to let both of the trees dry for an hour. Next, I'm grabbing this cute little deer that I got for $1.98 at Walmart, and I'm going to remove the top little tag that was on top of the deer's head. And I'm sorry I did it kind of off screen, but I just removed it to make sure it's nice and smooth. And then I'm just hot gluing everything where I feel like it needs to go. So I put one tree a little higher, one a little lower, and then Bambi kind of went to the side. And I think this wreath turned out absolutely beautiful, and I have it hanging in my living room right now. To hang my wreath, I'm just adding a piece of transparent ribbon to the top of my wreath. For this easy wreath, we are just using some tinsel from the Dollar Tree and wrapping it around our foam wreath form. After we're done wrapping it around, we are going to decorate with a silver jingle bell ornament from the Dollar Tree. At this point, you can attach the ornament as is, but that blob of hot glue in the front really bothered me. So I'm grabbing some pine cone potpourri, and I'm going to grab a tiny little pine cone and then just cut the end of it and hot glue it as the third little pine cone in that little bundle. I also added a bigger pine cone on the other side of the ornament, kind of to balance everything out. To hang my ornament, I'm just very carefully putting a pin through the ribbon, inserting it into the wreath, and covering up with the tinsel. We are going to start by doing the hat. And what I want to do is I want to make this part right here a little smaller. And I'm going to be using this tongue depressor as my little mark. Just making the mark where to bend. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to grab these tongue depressors, and we're basically going to build up a hat. I just want it to be stronger. It's not necessary because we are going to put felt over it, but I just want that extra strength on it. And I'm going to start with this bottom one. Where the sticks are, that's going to be my front, and where the wire part is, this is going to be my back. So just keep in mind when you're positioning them to see which way you want your snowman to go. The first thing I'm going to do is cover this area. And this area is basically the width of a tongue depressor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, instead of going right along the edge, I'm going to go in just a little bit, maybe a quarter of an inch. And I'm just using a blade and I'm just running a blade through. That's it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give just a little bit of hot glue right there on the edges so I can pick it up. So what I'm doing is I'm literally just bringing the ends in, kind of folding them in, kind of like this is folded. Just fold them in and just bring them over. See how I have these bent right here? I'm gonna bring them over. And if you have anything sticking out, this is why you just use your little tongue depressor. A little bit of glue. And then I'm using my tongue depressor to push it in. And I'm going to do the same thing to this side. See, now we have nice and smooth edges. As you can see, it's sticking out right here a little bit, but don't worry, we're gonna have the mesh coming over here. And then this part is going to be covered by the second part, and then we're going to have a ribbon right here to smooth it out. And I'm going to give it just a little bit more so I can fold over. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hot glue the edges right here. And so I'm going to hot glue right here. We're going to need these Deco mesh rolls from the Dollar Tree, along with some of these fuzzy sticks or whatever you want to call them, chenille wires. I usually call them chenille wires. And these particular ones are from Michael's. I just had white ones from there. But Dollar Tree also has these. So I'm just going to take a few of these and cut them in 3. So we are using the bubble method. So I'm going to start from the middle. And then I'm going to make my way around. So what we're going to do is we're just going to bring some mesh together. Grab our chenille wire. And I'm going to twist it right at the crossing right here so it's nice and secure. Basically, we're going to put as many bubbles as we can until we don't see the wreath anymore. And we are going to be actually making really small loops here just because this is a snowman. This is not supposed to be super big. I'm going to be using 4-inch loops. And I always loop up. So the middle is up, and we're going to measure from where our chenille wire is to where I'm grabbing 1, 2, 3, 4 inches, grabbing it, bringing it in, grabbing another chenille wire, and I'm going to tie around both of these rings. Starting where our attachment is, we're going to measure 4 inches. Loop in, grab a chenille wire, do the first twist on the deco mesh, and then bring the loop in and tie right there. And as you can see, the wreath is already disappearing. I just made 3 loops. It's already disappearing. And well, once you started, make sure that your snowman hat, that this is the back where it needs to be, and that you're working from the front. Okay, we're going to measure 4 inches. Grab it, loop it, grab a chenille wire, do the first twist on the deco mesh. All right, I finished one section and I really packed it in. really tightly. So I made 24-inch loops. You could probably get away with 15, but I wanted this to be really full. So yeah, and look at this. You can't see the wire at all. And I'm just going to continue going around using the same thing. Just 4 inches. Bring my little chenille. Twist it. And then straight onto the wreath form. Starting a new roll, I just attached right here. The little tail right there, I'm going to push inside. Let me just push it back. So I'm just starting right there. And I'm going to measure off 4 inches. Tie it first on the Deco mesh. Make my little loop. And then tie it to the actual wreath. Okay, now we come to this part, and don't forget that this part is pretty much covered, meaning the second ring is kind of attached right here. No worries, we are going to attach to the inner ring. So I have my first one, and just continue working like we were working. Okay, because it's hard to see your 4 inches with the hat. I measured that the hat is pretty much 4 inches, so that is how I'm going to measure. I'll just basically be measuring against the hat.
The wonders of life got the prettiest side for everyone to enjoy. Standing up close by the Christmas tree, glimmering light, I am right where I wanna be.
All right, now it's time to work on this cute little hat. I'm grabbing some of this ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to hot glue it to the back. Okay, now that I have that glued, I have a piece of greenery from one of the Christmas bushels from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to just hot glue it right there on the corner right there. So it's sticking out of the hat. And then I'm going to cut another piece. Now I'm grabbing a tie. This is a garland tie from the Dollar Tree, because I do want some greenery there.
You like to be here too.
Now I have some berries. These are from one of the Dollar Tree picks.
Drinking hot wine by the fire.
And then I want to put a pine cone in the middle, and these are the Dollar Tree pine cones. And I'll just do this, but you know what? I think I want to frost it up.
Some kind of love, my friend. I'll pray
there you go. Just like that.
Do you like to be here?
Okay, for the little arms, I got some sticks here. And I'm just going to cut down to see what would look best on here.
It's just you and me tonight. I'll spend all these.
And I'm actually going to follow exactly what they have here. And then 2 little ones right here, maybe something like this.
Up in my arm, there's nobody at the door. You said I wish this will never be over. Darling, it's time for your present. Come over here. Now it is time to get out in the snow, lighting a light with you. Choirs will sing and the joy bells will ring. Nobody loves you as much as I do. It's a wonderful feeling from floor to the ceiling. It is that time of the year, drinking hot wine by the fire.
Let's get started. So I'm going to be using the Dollar Tree mesh, but I'm going to be using a method where we loop it around. And so just as comparison, this is the Dollar Tree mesh that we have, and this is 5 yards and 21 inches. So originally I was just going to do this where basically all together we have 21 inches right here. And all of these are also 5 yards. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell, but it's 5 yards right there, just like this. So it should be enough to go all the way around. But because the mesh is thinner and I want this to be full without putting much ribbon in between, just for it to have this beautiful look. And so I decided to use 2 silver and 2 white for this wreath. Now let's do the basics. We have 6 sections. Each section is going to have 3 of these chenille wires. And here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to use 1 section. The first chenille is going to go in between 1 and 2, and it's going to go straight in the middle. And I'm just going to give it 2 little twists. Even 1 twist will do. Here's number 2, and it's going to go on loop 3 and 4. And then 1 on this side. Okay, so here's what I got. Here's 1 section. We have 1 in the 1, 2, and then 2 in the 3, 4. Okay? And I'm going to go all the way around doing the same thing. Okay, and by the way, this is from the Dollar Tree. As you see, it says Crafter Square right there. And for $1, you get 45 of these. Not bad, you guys. Not bad at all. All right, now I'm going to open all 4 of these up and just stretch them out on my table. So I have them in order: silver, and white. Bring them together. I'm going to put it inside one of my middle silver ones, and I'm going to zip tie it to the second from the inside loop. I just sleep better at night when I know that my wreaths are nice and secure, and this first loop and the last loop that you make are the most important. So I always want to make sure that it's nice and tight. I'm just going to cut this off. I'm going to cut the tail. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the inside first. So here are my 8, and the white ones are my 10 right here. What I decided to do is more of 9. For some reason, I'm very worried that it's not going to be enough. So I'm going to make 9-inch loops. Starting from where my mesh is right here, I'm going to make sure that the loop is going to be right here. So it's facing, like I can cup my hand in it, meaning it's like this. So I just keep it like this. Measure out my 9 inches. Loop it like this. And go in between the silver, the next inside one. Give it 2 nice twists. Then measure out my next 9 inches. This one's just a little bit more of a pain in the booty because you have to constantly unroll all the, deco mesh, but that's okay. It's really not a big deal. Okay, next loop right here. I have my 9 inches. You can do 10, but I just felt like doing 9 just to make sure that we have enough. And now we're going in. And I'm going to give it 2 twists right here. 1 and 2. And see, it's trying to loop out. I'm gonna loop it back in. And twist all my deco mesh. All 4 of them. Okay, measure out my 9. Right there. Go to the next. And 2 twists. Okay, now I'm at the beginning where I started. I'm going to finish off this loop I'm going to go right on top of where I was. Finish off my loop right here. Make it nice and tight. Twist 1, twist 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the one that's on the same section. And just to the second one right here. Twist 2. Right now they're all sliding right here. You can always give it a dab of hot glue over here if you wanted to. But I don't usually do that just because when you open all of them up, it really is not going to matter. But if you feel like that's something you would like to do to make sure that it's nice and secure and won't move on you, you can definitely do that. Let's measure out the next 9 inches. I'm just bringing it together. And I'm going to loop it on the one that I started going down with. And then I'm going to take this tail, feed it through the the fourth and third. I'm gonna turn it upside down. Here's my tail. And I'm going to zip tie it to the third loop from the inside. Isn't this nice and clean? Cut up the excess. I'm going to open up all of my little loops. And just undo them like this. I just want to show you the difference. Here's unopened and here's opened. Do you see the difference? Opened, nice, full, unopened. All right, I'm gonna continue and finish opening up all of this, and then we're going to get into decor. Okay, for the ribbon, we are going to do something different. We are going to use this buffalo check from the Dollar Tree. And instead of our usual 12 inches, we're going to do 10 for this. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to measure off my 10. And then I'm going to keep on going until I'm done with the spool of the ribbon. But I'm going to do one right now for us. I'm just going to cut ducktails right away on both of these together. Okay. Now we're going to grab this silver netted ribbon from the Dollar Tree. Also do 10 inches. You could ducktail it, you don't have to. I mean, it's kind of... ducktail or dovetail, what do you call it, you guys? It seems like everyone has a different name for it. Okay, so here's how we're going to do it. One is going to go straight. The other one is going to go a little cross. And then this one's going to go on top. Then we are going to prepare any ornament, and we obviously need 18 sets like this. So what I do is I start instead of just putting them together, and you know, different people do it differently, I'm going to bring it together right here. There you go. This way we kind of make a little bow and it's crisscrossed and it's going to be beautiful. Let's go to the center. We're going to put it in. On one of the chenille wires, put the ornament, feed it through, and then hide both of the chenille wires in the back, twist them, secure them, and you're all done. Now we just have to play around with it when we're all done and make it all pretty. but look how beautiful it turns out. A little bit of sparkle from the silver ribbon. Bam. How gorgeous is this? And we're just going to go around the whole wreath doing this. Okay, so this is the wreath right now, and I felt like this is more than enough. I did not want to put anything else on there. I'm just trying to basically just make everything pretty and have everything stand out, what needs to stand out, and, you know, kind of just play with it and make it look pretty. Alright, I have some new Deco mesh from the Dollar Tree I bought just yesterday. So just to compare to a regular roll from the Dollar Tree, it's 6 inches, this is 10 inches. But check this out. This one is 5 yards, this one is 10 yards. So this, look at this, it's double. The only thing that's worrying me about this, it's looking a little plasticky. So let's take a look. It does feel strong, you guys, I have to admit. There's a piece of tape on there, okay. Probably on this side too. But it's not as soft as regular Deco mesh, and it is a little bit more porous, as you can see. Meaning the squares are a little larger. So I'm a little worried how it's going to affect my wreath here, but we are going to try to do our best and see what we can do with this type of mesh, because this is the first time I'm using this, so that's why I'm a little weary. So I'm going to be using a 14-inch metal wreath form from the Dollar Tree. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I want the ombre effect of the mesh to be shown. So either it's going to be like this, or it's going to be like this. I'm not sure how I'm going to open it yet, but for that to happen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to face one way and the other way, meaning here's me unrolling it. Do you see that it's practically just like invisible? I'm a little nervous now, you guys. And so the other one is going to go this way. Okay, this is going to be a little hard because this, it's, you know, the way it's rolled. That's all right. We'll see how it works. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just bring it together. First thing I want to do is I'm going to zip tie the little bundle. I'm going to just push it through. And I'm just going to zip tie it at the crossing right here between the second and the third loop from the inside. And I just like to kind of do it literally on that little crossing. Making sure we have plenty. I know I'm going to have enough mesh because, I mean, 10 yards. Better be enough. But the question is, how big do we want our loops and how thick? So I usually, for these, I do about 8 inches. And I feel like because this is so open, 8 inches is basically the maximum to go with, because if you go any higher, then it's going to be a more poofy but open wreath, okay? So let's do 8 inches, which is my white section right here. Loop it in. Bring it in. So basically we're going to put our chenille wires, whether you're using a full or a half, on the second and third, like this. So here we go. I'm going to measure our 8 inches, poof in, make sure it's poofing in, And then I'm just going to loop it. And a half is more than enough. Do you see this tail? It's more than enough. Even if you're going to put like ribbon in or something, it's still gonna be enough if you're going to be doing that. So far so good. I don't know. I'm going to finish the first section and then we'll see what it looks like. Okay, since this is the first time I'm working with this, I want to open up the first section to see if I have enough. I'm just so worried that it's so kind of like, it's so see-through. So I'm going to open this up, see what it looks like. Okay, so here's the consensus. I am pleasantly surprised. It looks thick. I cannot see my wire form, which is always my goal, is to make sure that when I'm making these, that the wire form is, you know, covered. I'm not sure what we're going to decorate it with, but the way I opened it up is because of the ombre effect. I want the dark to be on the outside and then the light to be on the inside. Because this is a winter wreath, I wanted the light blue on top. This could actually be a really pretty kind of baby shower boys wreath too. The short one is just fine because you're going to loop it and then bring it in the back over here. And this big one, what are you gonna do with it? You're still going to just kind of twist it and then cut it off. So it's just a good idea to do it, to cut your chenille wire in half. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to continue doing 6 loops on each of the sections. I wanted to take a second and show you exactly how I tie each one of the loops. I'm going to measure my 8 inches right here. Make sure it's looped in. And then here we go. I'm bringing my half of a chenille right to the center top, giving it 2 twists, or at least 1. Then I'm just bringing them back in the back right here. And in the back, I'm just twisting them. Twisting them until it's just, you know, twisted together, and I'm putting it down. And that way you have a nice, clean, kind of, you know, beautiful wreath in the back. I'm going to fix everything I haven't done, you know, in the back, but that's all you do. And so far, this is looking absolutely gorgeous. This part is open and then this part is mixed, but you can definitely leave the wreath just like this. But I wanted the ombre effect, so I wanted my dark blues as you saw before in there, and the light blue on top. All right, time to continue with this party, and I'm going to finish up the 3 sections right here. And here is the last loop. Okay, so here's the last loop. And I'm going to just, let's see here. What I like to do is I like to overlap them and then zip tie both of them to only one of the loops. So I'm going to zip tie it to the second one. That way it gives it a stronger hold. Nice and tight. Ooh, I love it. All right. Cutting off like the strays. They're the ones that are really sticking out. I have to say, I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of this mesh, but I love the fact that it is you could do an ombre effect, and when you're doing a loop bow, look at this. So easy, so beautiful. Now you could tell that this is where I spread it out. If you take a look, you really almost don't have to if you want to keep the loops. I particularly don't feel like keeping the loops because I do want more of an ombre effect. I want that dark blue to be hidden on the edges and to keep the light blue on top. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to finish opening up the wreath all the way around, and then we're going to start decorating. All right, so I decided to put the snowflake in the middle of the wreath, and it's quite large. I wish it was a little bit smaller, but that's all right. We will make it work. The first thing I'm going to do is grab some spackling and cover the little hole. All right, because this wreath is going to be outside, I decided to use these Magic Fly acrylic outside paints or outdoor paints, and I'm going to grab, let me see here, the marshmallow white. Here it is. And Magic Fly is the one who actually sent me these paints, but they are on Amazon, and I think the prices that they have are not so bad for what they offer. On my hand somehow, I don't know. This is pretty thick. Ooh, I like this. I'm grabbing the Battleship Gray, and I want to literally dry brush it all over the snowflake. Right, so I decided to write Hello Winter on here with some Scrabble pieces. I finally got some, and these are from Magic Fly. I'll give you guys the link down below, and it's 1,000 Scrabble pieces, and I believe it was around $20, but look how cute this is. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. Alrighty, so I'm somebody who likes to be accurate, so the first thing I'm going to do is center my snowflake. Decide how you want it. Maybe you want this at the point. I wanted kind of even on all sides. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to grab any Scrabble piece, and I want to find my middle. So I have the middle right here and the middle right there. There you go. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the L, because that is in the center. So you just decide how big or how small, how far away you want these. And I decided to use this glue stick right here. And that is going to be my spacer in between all the letters. When I put it on the wreath, it just seems like something is missing. All right, you guys, and we are ready to attach. Right. What I like to do is fold it this way. I have my wreath ready to be assembled and almost done. I'm so excited. All right, just wiggling my little threads here. And I'm going to do it to let me see here. I'm just tying it to the first and second ring. And as always, I start out really loose, just in case it doesn't look right when you actually attach. Or maybe you're pulling too tight on one side. So just do it loose for now. We can always tighten it up and then see how it looks. I hope you enjoyed this video and got inspired. Let me know down below which wreath was your favorite. To all my friends who stopped by and spent some time with me on DIY with Nadia, I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!